Welcome everyone to the Voice of the Terminus show. I'm Yarnila, joined by Josh. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys.
Joined by Leks. Say hello, Leks.
What? Where? Kill it!
And we have the wonderful Shai in the background, who will be taking questions from chat to ask these two wonderful gentlemen. And we have actually achieved something great here today. So originally we were set up to sit down with Joe and talk to him a bit about Pantheon, and then Lexa decided to go out on a Twitter rampage, and Beard Sage kind of hopped in to his defense more or less, and now he's here, and this is actually a premiere. We've never done this before. Now, we've never had two random people on the Player Q&A show before, so kudos to us, and we celebrate our 150th VOT show today as well, so that's actually quite a treat, and what a better way to celebrate that by doing something completely out of the blue and spontaneous. So welcome Joe, and welcome Beard Sage.
Thank you, thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
So we're going to go and ask you guys some questions, and Beard Sage, you better be prepared, brother, because you had no time to.
Let's do this.
He literally had 2 minutes to prepare. So I'm going to start this off. Joe, could you please give us a little bit of insight to your gaming background?
Sure. Yeah. I was a kid that grew up playing Atari, Nintendo, Sega. I was a hardcore Sega guy. I actually bought the Sega Saturn and the 32X. So, some bad decision making there. But eventually I got over that in the late 90s. Finally ended up getting into EverQuest. Actually, before that, I was into fighting games. If you remember, in the 90s, fighting games were huge. Played a lot of Virtual Fighter 3, Virtual Fighter 2. I was really big into those. Moved into EverQuest, and that was like the biggest earthquake in my gaming life. That changed. It was a complete. That game shattered the mold in so many ways, and I never thought about games the same way again. And in fact, I kind of feel like I was dreaming about a game like EverQuest before I even played it. And when I saw that game for the first time in that college dorm room, I knew, man, this is it. Someone made it. Someone made that game that I've been dreaming about all these years. So that was a big paradigm shift for me. But not just RPGs. I've also played a lot of strategy games. I was big into Starcraft. I was big into... So mainly strategy games and RPGs have been really big for me. Yeah. And so I think... maybe I should mention, in the 90s, I was in a tournament. You may have heard of it. It's called the Blockbuster World Video Game Championship. I actually participated in that, went to the World Championship, and was part of the World Championship team there. That was a lot of fun. Wasn't the overall leader, but they broke us down into teams and participated in that there. That was a good time. I've done a few videos about that on YouTube, and Dr. Disrespect's fans all came and downvoted me because I said that he didn't win the championship. But anyway, so aside from that, yeah, man, I'm just looking forward to Pantheon. I think it's the perfect timing. MMOs are really in a sore spot right now, and WoW's not about to phase out and sink. So I'm hoping it's going to help make MMOs great once again, as they were in the golden age.
Cool.
Yeah. So, Mr. Beard Sage, our impromptu guest, how about your gaming background?
My gaming background is... I don't even know the year I started playing games, but I did originally start with the Nintendo, moving all through most consoles. Those ones that were not that great, I probably didn't touch. But at some point, I ended up playing EverQuest, and that was actually because of my sister. She bought it when it came out, and she was playing it. And when she wasn't playing it, I was playing it. And then this is like midnight. She would go to sleep, and I'm like, "You're done? Cool, let's do this." So I'd be up for 7 more hours playing EverQuest. And that basically started my MMO career. I've been, EverQuest, Dark Age of Camelot, WoW, Final Fantasy XIV, even some of the smaller ones like I forgot, there was one that was, I think that was Russian that I enjoyed for a time. That was pretty good. But I've got a pretty extensive career when it comes to gaming. It's been a good portion of my life, and I have played just about everything. Oh, sorry. I don't play a whole lot of sports games, but fighting, RPG, RTS, like all of it. And I've always loved games since I first started playing them, and I seriously doubt it's going to stop.
Cool. So, Joe, you're kind of all over with games. So I'm going to ask this question a bit differently. So, what games are you currently playing at the moment?
Right now, I've been streaming EverQuest. I have been excited about Pantheon. So I was like, well, what's the next best thing? And for me, the first answer that popped in my mind was Project 1999. And I say, well, how about I start rekindling my love for the genre, dive in, fire up Project 1999, and get others excited about MMORPGs, get them into it, have them jump in and see what was great about the game. You know, there's a lot of people out there, a whole generation of people that missed EverQuest, people that started diving into MMOs where, you know, a lot of people, World of Warcraft was their first MMO. So I'm trying to reach out to that demographic that doesn't understand the things that World of Warcraft got wrong. And I'm trying to help them understand, you know, World of Warcraft, they expanded upon the concept and improved in a lot of ways. But I think there were a lot of things that like, for example, instancing dungeons was a big one. I think that was a big mistake. Because that's such a large part of the community building in MMO. And like, why even have it should be just called a instance, you know, massively instanced online role-playing game. So they keep instancing all these things in these games. And so that's definitely been playing a lot of EverQuest. And then additionally, before that, I was doing a lot of Civilization Revolution. I don't know if you check my channel out, but I must have made like 1,000 videos about Civilization Revolution. I think I was the only person on Earth playing that game. So I built up quite an audience just playing that one game. There's like a die-hard group of people who love that game. It's a great game. It's one of those games that's single player, mainly single player, but you could just play it over and over, and it just seems to never get old. Diablo 2 was kind of that way as well. I could just, it's like if I was on an island and I was bored out of my mind and had nothing to do, but I had a computer, I'd probably pick Diablo 2 because you could just endlessly entertain yourself in that game. And maybe Civilization Revolution as well is another one.
Cool. So, Beard, the same to you. What games are you currently dabbling in?
So, mostly World of Warcraft currently, i.e. MMOs. I can't get away from them. I'm actually waiting for the Cult Tyrants to come out. I really want to... I've never been into healing. I've always been either a tank or a DPS, so I'm waiting for them to come out. I'm going to try and level up a Resto Druid. I'm going to see how that goes. And at the end of the month, I think I might pick up Final Fantasy XIV again with try out the Blue Mage, and I know that they just announced the Gunblade, so that... like I said, I really like tanks, and Gunblade seems like it's going to be pretty cool. Get into some Sea of Thieves, some Dead by Daylight. That's stuff I generally play with a bunch of other streamers online quite a bit. Let's see. Tried some Apex out. That's actually one of the better battle royales, I think. Like, I tried PUBG, but Apex seems like a lot more fun.
I'll let you in a little secret. I play Apex with my brother-in-law and my nephew, and it is fun, but I am terrible.
Oh, man, I can't hit the broadside of a barn, but hey, I'm going to try it anyway.
That's right.
Cool.
But I think for the most part, yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing now. And there's some stuff I'm waiting for, which one might be coming out. I don't know if you guys heard of Bloodstained.
Sounds familiar.
If you've ever played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, from the original PS1, that's probably my top game ever. And one of the same people that made that game is involved in this Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. And it's going to kind of have the same concept that game did. And I'm probably going to jump deep into that one when it comes out, as long as, from what I see from the backer demo, it looks like it's going to be really good.
Cool.
Nice. So, Joe, what has been your best and worst moment in an MMO?
This is a tough one. I wasn't sure if I should go more for a specific moment or a broader moment, like a broader span of time. For example, the first thing that sprung to mind for me...
Go wild.
Yeah.
Let it out. Let it out.
Like, I mean, like an obvious answer would be like a great moment would be getting my epic weapons with my ranger, right? Like way back in 2000. That would be an example of something that was like a single moment that was great. But another thing that has been great is simply, you know, because I've been playing EverQuest lately, and I've been playing it with one of my old friends, and we've been doing it 3 times a week. We jump on and we duo, you know, we run around and level together at the same time, and we stream that. And that's been a lot of fun because, you know, back then we didn't have all this modern technology. We couldn't stream. We couldn't really just jump on. We didn't, I mean, did we even have TeamSpeak or anything? I don't, in 2000, I don't think we could jump on. I don't think we really had that. Maybe, no, I don't think we had technology back then. But I mean, I had dial-up.
It was Ventrilo.
Yeah, Ventrilo was,
Maybe
did we have that in 2000? Maybe.
I think so, maybe. I know there was Skype for sure.
Yeah, I had dial-up, so I know I dropped every time we charged Nagafen. That's all I remember.
Didn't we all have that?
Yeah, that was bad. But just playing with him,
Nagafen is undefeated for so many years. So.
Yeah, so just playing with him has just been awesome. I think one of the great things about MMOs just is enjoying experience together and playing with people that are close friends. I think there's sometimes the power gamer deep down inside of us tells us, oh, well, if I just race ahead, that's going to be more fun. But I think really in the long term, you enjoy the experience more if you play it with your friends together, and don't worry about leveling. Just kind of enjoy the journey and slow down a little bit. I think that's one of the key aspects in gaming in general.
Definitely.
And now the worst moment.
I've yet to hear one person ever say, after I've gotten all my power gear and everything like that, that's the best moment for me ever.
Yeah.
That journey.
That's true.
Yeah, when you get to the end of that journey, you're going to realize that's not what made you happy. What really made you happy was just, you know, all the struggles and fighting and just progressing through it together, and just really slow down and enjoy the journey. I think people are too concerned about the destination sometimes.
Exactly.
Now, the worst moment is, I have no doubt about this one. I remember this because I know Plane of Fear. You guys remember the Plane of Fear? Now, we tried to break the Plane of Fear, and we had the classic, you know, problem where everyone loses their corpses in the corner, that little southwest corner of the zone. And we couldn't get back in. We ran out of time. People left, logged out. I couldn't get my corpse. I'm like, oh, well, guess I don't need any of that awesome gear anymore.
Yeah.
Well, the next day, we managed somehow, we get help from another guild. We get back in there, and I'm looting my corpse like a lunatic. Like, I'm sweating bullets because, like, it's not cleared. Like, stuff is like flying around. Scarelings are backstabbing people for like 200 damage while I'm trying to loot my corpse. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to get out of here. And what do? I have fast destroy on, right? So, and I'm trying to move my short sword of the Yakesha over, and I destroy it. I mean, this is back in the day.
No.
I'm like, no. Keep looting. Just keep looting. And
I'll mourn later.
Yeah, I'm always cry about it later. But I lost one Ikesha. I mean, it doesn't sound like a big deal now, but at the time, that was like worth a lot of money, and you had to camp the Lord, and oh my goodness, you were so
back
lucky
in the
if you
day.
had
That was one of the big items back in the day.
Oh, those, especially for a ranger, you know, it's like, oh, that's all. So that was a painful moment. I won't forget that.
That sounds painful.
And yourself, Beard Sage?
Let's see. Best MMO experience. You know, I've had a lot of them, I would say. And one of the better ones, I think, was probably from Dark Age of Camelot. And like he was saying, broad on this one is they had their 3 factions, and just going from like area to area and taking like the relics and their towers from the other groups, and then combining with which are your enemies, combining with your enemies to take on the 3rd faction was a lot of fun because it's almost like our political system where it's Democrats, Republicans. Over there, it's for WoW, it's Horde Alliance. There, it was, I forgot, the nature people, the Vikings, and then like your normal like humans. So getting them like one side or the other together to destroy the other one and take their towers, and then the next day you might jump on, and what used to be your friends all of a sudden are no longer your friends. So now you're the one being targeted, and it made PvP just outstanding. It was always different. It wasn't just, oh, look, I'm killing the same group again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always found that the 3-faction system for any game that has PvP was the one thing that actually made me kind of drawn into it. The 2-faction system just seems kind of boring. It's two-dimensional.
It kind of helps the whole PvP process as well, having those 3 factions, because there's always going to be a change in power, shift and everything. So it's not always going to be the same. When you have like 2 factions, it's like, you have the one or the other.
Yep, you get a choice. You get a choice, and the other one you get 3 choices. You're like, I can take any of these, or I can take this one, but join that one and go take this one out. It adds a lot of more depth to it instead of just, well, I know who I'm killing today, the same team I've been killing.
Exactly.
Worst MMO experience. I know that one. I had forgotten, but I just remembered. Rift. The first raid, I believe, was killing a green dragon, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
And I was playing a rogue at the time, but I was a dagger rogue. I wasn't the archers that they had. And there was me and another guy. We were the first one. I don't think we were the first to kill it at all, but we were the first to kill it on the server. So it was pretty big at the time. And I think their legendaries were like yellow or orange, if I remember. And one of them dropped. It was the dagger, and I'm like, right here. That's me. The only person that can use it other than the ranger guy who's using a bow. So it just so happens that they were like, cool, we're going to give it to that guy. And I'm like, he's a ranger. He uses a bow. I mean, I guess if he wanted to switch to rogue, but I'm using daggers right now. They gave it to him, and I was like, all right, I'm going to leave this guild because I usually don't fight over loot, but clear indication that I could use it, and this is what I was doing, and not to give it to the other guy. They did it anyway. And I was like, you know what? I'm out. Done. Sorry.
Ouch.
Yeah, that hurts.
Can't say I blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, Joe, when and where did you hear about Pantheon?
So this was back in, I believe, probably 2014. Now, at that time, I was not really focused on MMOs or hungry for MMOs, but I did hear about it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. They're trying to do a Kickstarter for Pantheon. And at the time, I was focusing on I was actually developing a web game called Nevergrind. And at that time, I was actually learning web development, and I made a EverQuest fan game called Nevergrind. You can just play it at nevergrind.com for free. And basically, it had all the same race, class selections, all that stuff, had skills, and I added all kinds of crazy skills to the game. But it was kind of like a blend of World of Warcraft and EverQuest, I would say, but mainly EverQuest. And so I was really focusing on that at that time. But I definitely thought it was cool, and I liked the idea, but I wasn't really sure. And it was kind of disappointing to hear that it didn't end up meeting its goal. So I don't know where exactly I heard about it, but it must have been on probably the Project 1999 forums or something like that.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. And yourself, Beard?
Let's see. I'm only a recent addition, probably within the last year and a half, I would say. I don't keep up with stuff as much as I should. I'm rather busy, so I hardly keep up with news, much less anything else. Bit of time with the family and all that. But probably
it's fake anyway, so.
Let's see. So definitely within the last year and a half, and I'm pretty sure it came across Twitter, probably Bazgrim, actually. I think I saw one of his posts because I was getting deeper into streaming, because I started streaming a while ago, and I wasn't really trying to do anything. I was just streaming because I could. And it wasn't until I actually really started pushing for it. And then I jumped on Twitter because they're like, hey, you might be able to get some, views and push harder using Twitter. I was like, cool, so let me do that. I jumped on Twitter, and I'm going through it, and somebody, I guess, had followed him that I had followed. And I was like, oh, hey, look, what is this Pantheon Rise of the Fallen? It sounds kind of cool. And he was pushing it hard. Like, he really enjoys it. I'm like, that kind of passion, let me look into this. So I saw that, looked into it, and I was like, wow, like, what they're saying, a spiritual successor to EverQuest. And EverQuest was like my first experience in MMOs, and it was a great MMO. Like, I kind of wish it had continued on. I wish EverQuest 2 had actually been EverQuest 2. I didn't really like the direction it went with. What didn't it like destroy the moon and like everything separated? I was like, nah, that's too much for me. But then Pantheon, I was like, oh wow, open air dungeons where like I can run past a group of people that are actually doing the same dungeon. I'm in. Let's do this. And then what was it? Oh, monks can feign death, like actual feign death. I'm in. Let's do this.
Cool.
Well, to keep this rolling on the kind of the same track, Beard, I'm curious what your initial reaction was when you first learned about Pantheon.
Oh, when I first learned about Pantheon, it was... how can I put it? It had the lore and like the depth of the lore, and the races were different, and it seemed like I was gonna, I don't want to say relive, but get those memories back from when I first started playing EverQuest. And I was like, this looks like it's going to be good, and it's going to go back to, you know, when you had groups of people running into the same spot. Like, it's not even a dungeon, just you run in there. It looks like a little baby dungeon. You could like Befallen. It wasn't exactly a dungeon, but it's like its own little area, and you could run into it. And I'm like, if they do this, this is going to be amazing. And I was like, the thing that got me the most, and this seems silly, but, and I just said it, monk feign death. Like, feigning death, it was just so much fun to just feign death and like build up the experience in EverQuest with it. And I may or may not have a few times in Black Bro feigned death and killed a few new people. But that was one of the things that was right off the bat, is it seemed like it was going to go back to the times where you were grouping with actual people to accomplish something. Whereas in games like I still play WoW and I enjoy WoW, but usually it's like jumped into the queue, got a group. Hey everybody, kill, final boss dead, peace. No interaction. That's about it. I'm one of the few people who actually jumps in and goes, greetings, and most people are like, hi, and that's the end of it. I'm like, all right.
I'd say there's very limited positive interaction.
Yeah.
When it's negative, there's more of it than you can handle.
Oh, yeah, we get that all the time. That's one of my favorites. But yeah, that's probably, my first reaction is, if this is going to go back to being a grouping MMO where you actually have to work to do things, I'm in. I'm like, let's play this. It can be out tomorrow, and I'll be ready to go. Let's do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, Joe, what was your initial reaction?
I don't know. I don't think I really reacted to it when I initially heard about it. I think I reacted to it more when I actually saw Carnage streaming it. And when I think, I don't know if that was 2016 or 2017, but I know I saw it and I was like, wow, this is definitely EverQuest Inspired. And that piqued my interest, because I think if they could take those, get back to the basics of what made MMORPGs great, EverQuest really did an awesome job when, you know, like I said, I really believe they shattered the mold and really laid the foundation for what makes an MMO great. However, I don't think it was necessarily a perfect game. I just think that it's a good starting point if you're going to sit down and design an MMO. And I think if you just have some modernizations and some conveniences without going crazy with these LFG tools and all these kinds of things. I mean, when I look at, I've done videos about this, but I've talked about how World of Warcraft, it's getting to a point where do you even have to leave the city to level the max level anymore? Like, can you just level?
Yeah, probably not. You could probably stay in Stormwind or Orgrimmar or wherever you wanted in, well, no, let me take that back.
Group finder all your way.
Gotta be level 10, right?
The first 15 level, well, if you do PvP, you can jump into PvP at level 10, PvP, and at 15 is when the actual looking for group dungeon queues actually happen. Yeah. So at least the first 10, if you're just going to do dungeon, the first 15. But after that, yeah, you're right. You can just sit in the city and...
It's getting to a point where it's just turning into a mission counter role-playing game.
Yeah, it is.
Like the Phantasy Star Universe was like that. I don't know if you guys played that. It was a Japanese game. where everything was just a mission counter and only the city was a shared environment. I mean, World of Warcraft is moving really close to that.
I mean,
it's basically lobby based.
Yeah.
If you look at MMOs, you know, they have so much to offer. And MMO is a living, breathing game. It's a world that is constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly adding content to it. You know, why would you want to sit in a city and just do nothing and go out and explore, see the beauty of the game? You know, these games have so much to offer.
One thing with that is, and I agree with you completely, and that's the problem with some of the newer ones now, is there's nothing to explore.
Yeah.
You don't go, but like, hey, I found this little in cove area. Let's see what's in it. Oh, look, more mobs. Now they've added like some chests in WoW, but you know, you don't find anything interesting. It's just, hey, look, they give you the whole map. Here it is. You're done. Yeah. You're right. If they added some, you know, little areas that you wouldn't normally go to and find something in it, even if it's not important, at least you're searching, you know, getting out there and exploring the stuff that you haven't seen.
Exactly. So yeah, just talking about the Pantheon races, which of the races caught your eye the most, Joe?
That's a tough question because they have really taken some risks in that department, because they've really, like, the Gnomes are totally different. I think that may be my answer. The Gnomes are totally different, and like, if I read the lore, it looks like they don't even have a body.
Yeah,
it's like they're like some kind of spiritual entity in a mechanical case or something. Like, it's like they've, I don't know if anyone has the exact information on what a gnome is in Pantheon. I think it's like they've taken their spirit and put it in a machine, and they're like a cyborg or something. Like, what is going on there?
It's like their soul, if you will, has been bound to their mask, and their essence is being held in by magical wrappings.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, they've really they could have just went with, you know,
there's been a lot of discussions about the gnomes themselves. Like, a lot of people are upset, and you know, they disagree with VR calling them gnomes. But if you look at the lore and you actually go into it, they were once, you know, of body form. They were like, you know, like of human, you know, humans like, and when they basically left their world or had to leave their world, the only way for them to survive was to become this entity. And that's how it all kind of happened. So they were once, you know, normal humanoids at the end of the day, gnome-like, and that's what it is. You know, people have to read into it. You have to look into the lore, and then you'll find out that they are actually very much gnome-like, as you would expect. Just that.
It sounds like they took their spirit and put it, like, they uploaded to the Matrix, and now they're in, like, they're in the mask. I think it's cool, man. It's different. It's cool.
It's creative.
It's
creative and different. It's not Tolkien rehash exactly. You know, they taking some risks, and they're doing something a little different.
And the nice thing about it is that they can create their own lore going forward. They can create their own history around it, and that's great.
And it kind of fits their lore, actually, because gnomes were generally tinkerers, and they tinkered their way into another body when they wouldn't have made it. So to me, it's not that far fetched.
I mean, the big thing with the classes is, as well, you know, is there like a rule book out there that says, you know, each race has to be a specific way? No, there isn't. It's fantasy, you know, and we should be happy that we have developers out there that are taking these small risks and mixing it up a bit.
Breaking molds and things,
you know, breaking everything apart, exactly, you know, and it's very rewarding and refreshing to see a new approach to the whole racial constellation.
And I'll add to that, I think the aesthetic of the gnome is way cooler than, for example, an EverQuest gnome was like this stodgy old, grumpy old man running around. I mean, they were cool too. You know, the grumpy old man's pretty funny, but they're like this high-tech, crazy, futuristic cyborg-looking thing. And I think it's pretty rad. I like it.
Yeah, very cool. Yourself, Beard? Which races have caught your eye?
So the two that have come out the most, I'm a big fan of dwarves. Stockiness, always drinking, pretty stubborn. So definitely that one.
Are you describing yourself in real life?
yeah. I'm not the biggest drinker, but you could ask my wife. I am pretty stubborn. But definitely them, and the Dark Mirror actually have caught my interest. I like their idea of like, it almost seems like a mermaid, and one of the reasons mostly that they got my interest, one, they're different, two, there's going to be 2 specific classes that I want to play, and it just so happens the Dark Mirror can play both. Unfortunately, the Dwarf, I think, can only play one. Yeah, I was a little depressed by that, but I might just make one and one the other and just call it a day. I haven't fully decided yet. I've got time, but I think that's the plan right now. So Dark Mirror and Dwarves are definitely the 2.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Now here's kind of a loaded question for you guys.
Oh boy.
So
We love loading.
I'm just going to say now, if anyone has any hate mail over this question, please direct them to me. Because I'm trust me, just trust me on that one. Okay, so Joe, should gender play a part in your character's physical traits, and if so, how would you see that affecting their physical traits?
Yeah, so, I kind of experimented. I'm a game designer myself, so I kind of experimented with that a little bit. And I think my answer is I don't think it should. I think when it comes to character creation, I don't think you want to bog down the player with too many choices on that screen, because the more choices you put on the character creation screen, the more decision paralysis they're going to have. It's like, damn, man, you're making me pick a race, a class, and then EverQuest had you had to pick a deity, and then you got to pick gender, and then if all these things really have started to affect how good your character was in the end game, they may just kind of feel bogged down by too many choices, and then you're gonna have all the min-maxers in there trying to figure out, well, the females are better at Nagafen. We're only gonna have only females rating Nagafen. It's just like becomes too. I could see that, like, men would have like better cold resistance because we're hairy or something crazy like that. It's like, oh, okay, this is a guild, we're a power guild, only men can raid on Lady Vox. Yeah, it could just become a little too many choices on the character creation screen. I like how it's just, most MMOs, most RPGs in general have just kind of made it an aesthetic thing, and people can try to choose based on which character model they think will get more viewers on their stream. You
see. Now you've actually created an artificial time sink as well, though, because that's what that would also create for the developers, to actually spend time creating quality content going forward, because you've got the min-maxers who are going to try out everything, figure out are the men better at doing this, are the females better at doing this, do we need a mix, do we need a match, so that's kind of like an artificial time sink as well. So it has its pros and cons.
I suppose, in a way,
like even the deity choice, right? Like EverQuest lets you pick a deity, which I think is cool. I like that games do that. But people are like, oh man, is that gonna like mess my character up? Can I go to Freeport? And should have given them stat boosts if they're a certain.
I could see it now. I can't get into Freeport because I'm a woman.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like
I'm gonna call my senator.
Like race and class alone, those are already a lot of choices, and it has a big impact. And just think about how hard it is to balance. Like a Pantheon has 9 races right now. It's probably going to end up with more. And then you got probably going to end up with 14 classes. And just even balancing that is impossible. It's not going to be balanced. It's going to be totally imbalanced. But that's fine to an extent. So I think they should just be careful about putting too many choices on that character creation screen, just because it becomes way too hard to balance.
Yeah. And believe it or not, choice overload is an actual thing.
When I go to McDonald's, I'm like, man, I don't know. Big Mac, I don't know.
It's very true. It's kind of like how I feel when I go to Starbucks. I just want coffee.
Oh yeah,
that's all I want.
Like 500 different types of coffee. It's like coffee with this flavor and that flavor, and with this cream and with that cream. It's like, hello.
Yeah. And when I have my wife order, I have no idea. My honey, I don't know. Just give me something.
And when I ask them for a coffee, black, no sugar or anything, they look at me like I'm weird.
Yeah.
Are you going to Starbucks? Because that makes sense. Starbucks.
Yeah. Well, okay, so a little background is that someone gave me a gift card.
That's the only way you're going to get Leks into a Starbucks. Send him a gift card.
And if it's free. Beard Sage, what do you think about gender affecting player physical traits and such?
So I am not opposed to it, but I see the idea of it being a lot more difficult to balance. If you have too many things, there's a term, creep, isn't it? What it's called? And when you're designing games where you're like, oh, I want all of these things into a game.
Feature creep.
Feature creep, yeah. So when you're in a game and you're like, oh, I want all these things, and then eventually you have to go back and get rid of them, or you have all this stuff, and you're like, it's cool, but nothing is, balanced, or it's not, it's rough around the edges and things break, and you're like, if you just took, 15 and kind of dropped it down to 7, then those 7 would be perfect.
Yeah.
So I see the idea of, like, it sounds cool. It's going to add depth to the game, but it might be harder to balance. I would say as long as it doesn't actually affect the game that much, I would not argue with it. But if it's going to make a giant difference in balancing the game and all that, unnecessary. You don't want to put it in there because, like it also was said, it adds more time to content because you have to make sure that the males do as much damage as the females do, or you put too much hair on you. Like he said, you got hair on you, so you're resistant to cold. But this one's over here freezing to death. It's like, oh well, that's not fair. But like, you should have put hair on your character. I don't know what to tell you.
Then your female should have been hairy.
Exactly.
You got that bearded dwarf. Remember that, man?
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, female dwarves had beards. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
it would work out, yeah. But
Exactly.
Well, you see, Beard Sage has the pretty stereotypical male dwarf style beard. I have got the female style dwarf beard because I'm a delicate flower, and you can't.
Actually, Joe does.
Yeah.
Joe has the perfect dwarf female beard.
I've got the Viking.
That's
beard
what I've been
because
going for.
Mine likes to split. It's annoying, actually. I try to keep it one, but I don't know. Maybe I'm Norwegian. Or
you got to get the double braids going, man.
yeah.
Yep, get him going, dude.
I've been told that, and maybe I should have to look into that. I've been told to do that.
So
Late
Joe,
night beard advice.
would you prefer that each race has its own starting city, or one main city where all start together?
I think it's really important to cultivate a strong cultural identity for each race. I think they should all have a definite. In fact, I think a lot of MMOs have been really shy about this, actually, in terms of, not. If you think about languages, that is really implemented in a really soft way. And no developer in the world will ever implement it, but I've often thought, wouldn't that be cool if you really couldn't understand other races and you would actually have to learn their languages of other races to even understand people, and you could like slowly learn it over time, and then like no one would ever implement this.
Just for those old school gamers out there, think of EverQuest without the common language.
Yeah,
exactly. It would be like no common language. You would have to start with. And then you could slowly learn it as you heard them talking in group chat. You're like, what is he saying? I have no idea.
Yeah,
but I mean, if they did that, it would reinforce cultural boundaries more strongly. And also currency is another one. Everyone has the same global currency. But in reality, that doesn't happen, at least not yet. But so I think those sorts of cultural elements like architecture and all those different kinds of things really help establish a strong identity. And, even the power gamer, I think, can feel and sense when a game has good lore in it. For a long time, I was like, quote, a power gamer. But I would go to Castle Mistmore and be like, whoa, this zone is awesome. Like, look at all this architecture is crazy. You can see there's some kind of military structure here, a command structure, leadership. There's crazy paintings on the wall. So there's a lot of cool stuff there that made you realize, hey, there's more going on here than just a game where an XP treadmill. There's more going on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we did a few discussions actually on what you just basically expressed, with the language that you grow over time, with the currency that you have, like different currencies for each race. So yeah, definitely, but we'll have to see what happens in the future.
I'll tweet Brad. We'll get him to we'll put that in.
There you go. Get those
He'll get back to you soonish.
Yeah, he'll get back to you. No problem.
You're taking a dig, Leks?
Yeah, of course I am. But Brad's a good guy. He knows it's all in good fun.
Exactly.
So what's your take on the starting cities, BSH?
So I understand the concept of having like a main starting city, because if you do play with friends, part of that is getting into a group and playing with your friends. So you want to be close together, and it might, in having the individual cities where it will be fun to have them, you're also going to run into one of your, like, oh, I want to play Darkmeer. I want to play Dwarf. Well, Darkmeer's here, Dwarf's over there. How do you come together, I don't know, without dying? Or maybe if they were to do them separately, have an easier route to get to each city. So if you want to instantly start the game, you don't particularly care about learning about your specific race, a boat that takes you to each different city, so that way you can start with your friends. That sounds a lot. That would work for like separate starting cities. I'm not opposed to it, but I would think from a standpoint of coming out with the game and wanting people to buy it and it to have longevity, is you need to make it to where if you're going to have a group content game, you need to be able to get to that group content. And if the cities are too far apart and there's no way to get to your friend, it kind of ruins out. Let's get in and do the group content, because who knows? You might not be able to get from A to B for 10 levels. Well, you just spent 10 levels. I mean, you learned the game, but that's 10 levels wasted where you could have been enjoying it with a friend.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I could see both sides working. It would just be one has to be implemented to where if you're having a game that's having the group content, make it to where you can get to the group content and don't make it 10 levels in. 2 levels, sure.
That might be actually something we have to talk about. You know, that's actually an interesting point, to see if there's actually a middle balance. You know,
well, I was going to say, it sounds like something that needs kind of a fuzzy implementation, meaning that there's wiggle room.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. I think EverQuest was pretty close to that. Freeport was kind of like the imperial national, the capital city where almost anyone could go, which is why East Commonlands was the place where people ended up trading so much.
Yeah,
that's kind of where everything gravitated towards.
I mean, EverQuest did a fantastic job. You know, EQ2, they had you had your Freeport, and then you had the smaller cities around that area where each individual race would start. So that was I think that's kind of like the start of the middle ground. How one could do that, where you have your major city Freeport, and then around that you have the outer cities like Encanus as well. So I think that might be something we could also discuss on as well at some later point.
Well, I also think that there could be one major trade route between the two major cities or something like that, and you could just hop on one of those transports going to the one city. So yeah, there's definitely options that they can utilize.
Just something to get you to your friends, and that's what group content's about, is finding new people and playing with your friends who are playing. And
exactly.
Separate, like, what was it? It was like the Wood Elves, I think, and there was also the Erudite. The Erudite were like on a separate island, and the Wood Elves weren't they like really far away from everybody at EverQuest, if I remember? What if you wanted to play an Erudite and you wanted to play a Wood Elf, and you can't because they're so far apart? So the caravan system, that seems like a good idea. Like, hey, I'm jumping on the caravan, I'll be there however long it takes, and then you can play together. Which to me, that's exactly what people are going to want to do, is play together. And if you keep them separate, you're going to run into them being like, why did it take so long for me to get to my friend and enjoy this content?
You're 100 meters away from your friends, and all of a sudden you get sniped. You get attacked. You're dead. And you got to go all the way back because you forgot to bind or something like that. You know, you spent 3 hours on this journey to get there. You went from one continent to the. Imagine that.
Would it be sad if I said that I have done that and that I have destroyed mice over that?
Yeah. So, Beard, you kind of hinted at the Darkmeer is the optimal race for you for the class choices that you want, and the dwarf only offers the one. So, what class are you typically drawn to?
So, on a higher level, mostly melee. I've always been. I don't know. I just can't get into, like, I'll play range for a time. I got several ranged in World of Warcraft all the way to max level each time, but I basically stopped as soon as I got to max level. Because when I start doing dungeons or raiding, I don't know. I'm like in the back going, this is not as exciting as, hey, let me hit you with this thing. To me, that's more exciting. So tank-wise, I think I'm going to go with the Dire Lord. And melee-wise, for DPS, I'm going to go with Monk. And it just so happens Dark Mirror could be both those. And I think it was the dwarves could be the monk, but not the Dire Lord.
I
think is what it was. Yeah. So I may just go monk on the dwarf and then go Dire Lord on the Dark Mirror, depending on how much I like Dark Mirror, because I like the lore behind him. And didn't it say that they were going to be able to when they jump in the water, their legs were going to form into like a tail? There
are hints of that, but we have nothing official.
I'm pretty sure that's true. If you go to the race page for the Dark Mirror, it shows both.
Yeah, so I was like, that is something different for a race that makes it interesting. It's not like, oh, we're all a standard race. We just look slightly different. Like, no, the Dark Mirror are going to form a tail when they jump in the water. That is just like a little extra for that race that makes it a little bit more interesting.
More interesting, yeah.
Definitely. So what about you, Joe? What class are you typically drawn to?
Well, I can say 20 years ago I was drawn to the Ranger because of Dritz Duerden, so that was all the high fantasy exposure I had at the time. That's all I knew. All right, Salvatore actually went to my high school in Leominster, Massachusetts, so that's why we had to read his book for summer reading. So
great.
In World of Warcraft, I played a priest, and I've also I've kind of played a little bit of everything. I don't know if I really have a strong preference. I kind of am leaning towards crowd control roles. I've been playing the Enchanter and the Bard on Project 1999. I think I really love the Bard. I think that class is going to make it into Pantheon at launch, I hope. It sounds like it will, at least based on what Chris Perkins has said. And I like bards because they probably will have the most bugs that I can exploit and be because they're so weird and so different and probably aren't going to get tested as much. I mean, that's not the real reason, but they're just so odd. They're the real oddballs of MMORPGs, and they're just so different and flexible and offer so much utility. It's just, for me, and they're just such a force multiplier. I love that concept. They can make everyone else good at their jobs. I think that's pretty cool.
You got the song weaving down yet?
Oh yeah, man. People complain about actions per minute on the Bard, but I'm like, man, what is it? Every 3 seconds you have to press the button. That's not too bad, man.
That's like, really not, yeah.
I mean, compared to Starcraft, you got like 200 actions per minute. It's not too bad. It can be a little bit of. I mean, I think they added that melody thing later on that made it a little bit easier.
Yeah, if I'm doing carpal tunnel off that.
Yeah. If I'm doing 200 actions a minute, I ain't playing a video game.
Yeah, that's why I quit playing StarCraft, because that game is like a treadmill, an infinite treadmill for your brain. It's like you get super burnout playing StarCraft at competitive levels.
My fingers were like this after about a year.
I love StarCraft. It's an amazing game, but it needs like a rate limiter on how many things you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Korea might be angry about that. They love that game.
Yeah.
I was actually, I wasn't in Korea, but I was somewhere where a person, I couldn't play video games at the time because I was underway. I was deployed, and I jumped into like an internet cafe. I think I was playing WoW, actually, and there was a dude next to me playing StarCraft. It's no joke that those guys can highlight and send stuff and build stuff, and by the time you look back, their entire place is built up. Like, everything is maxed, and you're like, it's been 3 minutes.
Yeah.
3 minutes. I didn't even know you could do that. I'm over here going...
In 3 minutes, I'd be like, God, what do I build first?
I'm trying to figure out when it's up in my name.
Yeah. What are my objectives?
Wait, what's this do? Why am I self-destructing?
I'm being attacked already.
From a creative point of view now, let's just go hypothetical here. If you had to create a new class, generally, because we've all been through all the MMOs, what type of class would you create, Joe? And how would it stand out from the others?
I would like to see. That was a tough question because I feel like they've really run. It's maybe I just need to look through some more Dungeons and Dragons books or something because I feel like in my mind, I feel like they've really covered the spread pretty well. I mean, you got the spell casting, the melee, and the hybrids, and all of that. The only thing I could really think of was maybe something like some kind of bard / spellcaster or something crazy like that, or like a bard / summoner or something like that. Like I don't even know how that would. If that would.
Oh, Shai's gonna love you.
You said summoner, so you're the favorite person.
Yeah, it's like you have to finish singing this song, and it'll summon like some huge deity to come smash it, like Final Fantasy VII. You know, like
That's
Odin
exactly what I was thinking
and
of.
eradicate your foe because you sang such a good song for him. That's the only thing. I don't know. That maybe they could experiment with that. I don't know if it would be balanced. I don't know. Summoning Odin doesn't sound too balanced, but
No, probably
but
not.
maybe we'll try it. I mean, they did it in Final Fantasy VII. Maybe something like that. Perhaps that would work.
Yourself, Beard?
Man, that's one of those questions I would have definitely needed time to think about.
Okay.
I don't know.
But let's see. I'll give you real quick. I can honestly say and I don't know if this is a complete creation, but I would like to see more berserker barbarian classes being made, like dual axes and stuff like that. You don't get many in these games like that because I guess it's more like Norse focused, and however fantasy it is, it doesn't necessarily fit all of the lore and everything. But I mean, anything related, because those are always fun to me because it's just like you have two weapons, you rage, jump in and smash things, and either A, you kill it, or you die because you don't have any defenses because that was it. So something like that.
So Beard, I have to ask now, since you're excited about dual wielding and barbarians and berserkers. What about a berserker dual wielding dual shields?
You can go straight to something that's very hot.
So I don't mind that. I don't know if it would fit the berserker exactly, but I have not been what was it? Final Fantasy 14 has the one boss who has the two shields. I forget what his name is. I think it'd be actually pretty cool to carry around dual shields. I don't know exactly how you would do it. Maybe have like a sword on the end of it that kind of shoots out for like actual damage. But hey, I would not be opposed to it. I think it'd be really cool. It'd definitely be different than what we've got.
That train is going to get ridden until I retire from Pantheon. The dual wielding shields.
No, that's a great idea. I got to say, because I did a video the other day on Druids, and I was reading their website, and it said on one line it says one-edged shield, and then on the it said one hand edged, and then on the next line it said shields. So I thought it meant one hand edge shields. I was like, what? Like an edge? I thought it literally meant like a one-handed shield. Like, oh wow, these guys are really like smashing the mold here.
Yeah,
because if you Google lantern shields, it's like that's actually a thing. Like it's like some kind of Italian shield that you wear like this. And I mean, sure, it could be a shield. I mean, remember in Lord of the Rings movie where he took that shield and he smashed that guy? You know?
Oh yeah.
It could be a thing. A shield wheeler, a shield class. I think we just invented it.
And the thing is, though, this isn't a new invention. This was actually something that was in the original Kickstarter.
Oh.
They had the
and then they wonder why it failed.
shields.
Yeah. One look at that, they're like, oh
yeah.
these guys are crazy.
Nuts.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that'd be cool. You could start out with like a trash can lid at level 1, you know, smashing bats with your lid.
Oh god!
And if you become really,
they need. I'm gonna tweet Brad right now.
Pantheon meets here. WWE trash can.
Man, I'm telling
Trash
you.
can, king of the
I mean,
room.
if you got the metal trash cans, you might as well take the other half and use it as armor.
Exactly.
You guys are coming up with really interesting ideas.
See, but that fits because I think a dual shield wielding tank would be called a trash can tank.
Yeah.
Because all they do is sit there and do nothing but cower.
Yeah. I think it would work.
and talk trash. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like chat
Hey, there you
saying,
go.
this stream has gone trashy.
Gosh,
That's
that was
actually an excellent
terrible.
Hey,
I like that idea, actually.
This show went trashy on episode 4.
That's when you came on, right?
Exactly.
Oh. But, that's an excellent idea. What is it? There's a class in D&D that, or an ability where you can basically damage your target by talking. So I'd be okay with dual shields and destroying your target with talking.
So,
like a diplomat. Like a diplomat.
So Joe, real quick, we'll have to get together after the stream, and we'll gang up on Brad, and we'll send him, a collaborative tweet.
Yeah, I'm gonna DM him. I'm gonna get all up in the DMs. I'm gonna be like, listen up, Brad.
Brad, everyone at
A
VR,
whole
stay
production
strong.
on that
Stay
necromancer.
strong. Don't give in.
We'll call it a
Stay
trash,
strong. No dual
trash
shields.
romancer or something. We gotta come up with a fancy name.
Oh, jumping.
Come on, Lex.
I don't even know if I want to continue.
Nope, cut it. Nope, can't
Yeah,
talk
no,
about it.
cut. I'm done. I'll be in my trailer.
A garbage mancer.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, so I'll start this one off with Beard Sage. We know what classes you like, but what classes do you not like?
Oh, man. I mean, to be honest, if it casts spells, I'm probably not going to play it. Like, I know that the Dire Lord might cast some spells, but if it's ranged, I just can't play ranged. I don't generally like standing back and launching stuff at a target. It's just not exciting to me. I'm more of the, get that double shield in there and, hit the target.
Yes! Good!
Get
Yes!
those
My
garbage
friend!
lids on and jump in.
Yep. It just, being in the target's face has always been my thing. So spellcasters and rangers and all those, like, sitting in the back, I usually avoid those. Now, if you give me a, what was it? In Rift, they had the champion, which also had, it was like a dual, not a dual welder, a two-hander, but also had a pet. That'd be cool. Like, not many games do that as much anymore, because it's like, why does a melee need a pet? I think it'd be cool, but yeah, I'd have to say
Because Beast Lords are cool.
Beast Lords are cool. But anything that casts spells from the back, I'm not going to play it. It's just, I may level it at one point, but it's just going to collect dust after it reaches max level.
What about you, Joe? What class do you not like?
I wouldn't say I don't like any specific class, but there's one class that I certainly have the most concerns about, and I would say that's the Enchanter. Now, they've been harping on this whole quaternity thing, and I think the major concern that I have is that they reduce the Enchanter, they pigeonhole him like a little bit too much to this one crowd control role, because we know that other classes have crowd control. Like Root and the Ranger has a crowd
We've
control.
seen the Rogue has a crowd control.
The Gnome has one?
The Rogue.
Oh, the Rogue. And so I think they should be a little careful about how they pigeonhole the Enchanter. I don't want to see him be this thing where it's like, oh, I only do this one thing. I mean, he's a spellcaster. He should also have, it should be more like a spectrum. Like he's the best at crowd control. And but it's not the only thing he does. If you say there's two enchanters in a group, it's like the most annoying thing in the world. Like, because I've been that guy, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll cast my choke spell, or I think they should be able to do something else. Okay, like DPS, probably the worst DPS among the casters, right? Like they were in EverQuest. So I think that they should still have options aside from that. Like say, because think about PvP. What is an Enchanter going to do in PvP? He's not going to be like locking everyone down and just he can't go crazy with crowd control in PvP. He's going to have to. It's going to have
stunning, isn't it?
Well, he's called
stunning.
He's called an Enchanter, so you've got the crowd control aspect.
Amazing.
Is my vision is a small portion of it. He enchants, so obviously he would be able to play tricks on you and play tricks on the environmental encounters around him and enchant them to do his bidding.
Yeah, I just think they just need to be careful about how they implement that. And I think I don't want to see the developers focus too tight on PvE. Personally, I think I may be even in the minority here, but I think that could be a mistake. if they focus too much on. I think they also need to think about how PvP will work, especially for classes like the Enchanter and the Bard, because charm and mass and CCing stuff isn't going to work in PvP.
Well, I would say it wouldn't work specifically, but you're right. If you play with like the randos, like say in World of Warcraft, you like all the time. I don't know, stun something or whatever, or incapacitate something, and you'll see the little thing above their head, and about 2 seconds later, you see one person going stab, and you're like, but he's out of the fight. Why did you hit him?
Yeah.
But no, it definitely would be bad for PvP if they could mass CC. But I could see how if they could CC 1, 2, maybe 3 targets with like a couple of different spells, that would make them definitely strong and definitely needed. And I don't think it would necessarily be overpowered unless you were fighting only 3 people. But I don't think it'd be that bad. It would add something to it besides just, oh look, I'm here to damage things, which we know is in most MMOs.
Right. I think they would just have to adjust how it works in PvP. Basically, just change the timings down, and the durations would have to go down and stuff like that. I think they can make it work.
Oh, I'm sure they could. I could sit here and get to a big discussion on that, but yeah. Moving on.
Next on the VOT.
Lexer is on break. Joe, which racial lore has become your favorite and why?
I'm interested. Well, yeah, the lore is pretty interesting. I was reading through it today. This, your questions kind of forced me to engage the lore a little bit deeper, because it's actually pretty interesting lore. I'm interested in. I mean, the Archai definitely stands out. I'm trying to understand exactly, how somehow they were enslaved on some other planet. So I'm curious how that. I'm not really clear on exactly the Archai's whole, what their angle is on everything, but I know that they came a little bit later than the dwarves and the elves, and they came around the same time as, I believe it was as the Dark Mirror, and it looks like, so I'm just interested in learning more about that, like why they were enslaved and how they're kind of struggling and dealing with that. So yeah, I'm just interested in learning more about that personally.
Cool. What about you, Beard Sage? Which of the racial lore is your favorite? I think I know.
Oh, well, go ahead and take a guess, because it's probably what I'm going to say.
It's going to be dwarves.
I do like dwarves, but you know what? Actually, Dark Mirror have been super interesting in this one, because you know what? I'm with them. I'm generally for the dwarves, because I said they're stout. They live under the earth. They're just stubborn, and they don't back down, which is usually what a tank needs to do. So it's like dwarves are perfect for that role. It's like, you're not going to take me down. I've got all these people to defend. But in reading in the lore, the Dark Mirror, the part that caught me with them the most is they seem like they're, I won't use the word, but they seem like they're a-holes, but they're not actually bad people.
Yep.
From what I read in the lore, they just seem like they're kind of like in on themselves, and they don't really want to work with other people. But
they're almost xenophobic.
Yeah, they're not opposed to it, but it's more like, I know my people won't mess with me. I don't know about you. And I thought that was like really interesting about them.
Very cool. So, Beard, just continuing on this lore drive, how important is it to you in the game itself?
Lore is pretty important if you're going to be playing any kind of fantasy, like MMO type thing. I mean, well, I guess all of them technically, but definitely in fantasy, because a lot of people like to build their character around which race they're going to pick and to know something about it, and they can play the character properly. They feel like they're actually immersed in their character and playing it. If you just go, we'll just say Dark Mirror. Oh, you got the Dark Mirror. What do they do? Mermaids? Okay. I don't know how I'm going to play that to a T or anything. So yeah, lore is important. You have to have lore behind your races to properly get into the character that you're going to play, or else it's not exciting. You don't have any vested interest in the race if you don't know anything about them. You'll have to, I mean, of course you're going to make your own because you're playing it, but if you don't have any backstory, what do you bounce off of? oh, I'm a mermaid who came from somewhere else, and I don't know why I'm angry.
If I had to play a mermaid and there was no lore, I would be doing it to the soundtrack of Under the Sea.
There you go. I would be surprised if there's going to be a lot of characters named Ariel in the game that are female. So
and every time I'm going to die a little inside.
It happens in all MMOs.
It does.
There'll be a lot of X's too. That's my favorite.
I'm actually waiting for the first male dark mage to be called Nemo.
Nemo. I have my standard name, but Nemo. Yeah,
you like it, huh?
Nemo.
Hey, Beard. You like Nemo, and you're into dual shields. Hey, we'll have to chat later.
or Aquaman, whoever. Yeah. And yourself, Joe?
So the lore, when I first really got into these games, for me it was really more about the character development through the attributes, the stats, getting the equipment, the armor, and for a long time that was really my focus. And because I always enjoyed RPGs, it kind of took an action game and went to a deeper level, really showed you what your character was good at and bad at, and everyone's character was a little bit different, and I liked that. I liked those gameplay elements that were at work and how different it was and how you can make your character better with all these items. And that part of the game is certainly enjoyable. And I didn't really take lore that seriously for a long time. But I think as I've gotten older and I've looked back, I've realized that lore matters more than people realize. I think people kind of take it just kind of, oh yeah, I'm playing a video game. And yeah, there's some story there, but really that's just there so that it can kind of facilitate this game world and I can just go get my fat loot and be on my way. But it's definitely, you definitely need, I think EverQuest is a perfect example. Obviously, I think Brad must have taken like his D&D world that he wrote somewhere else and he stuck it into EverQuest or something like that. Because it was so, you can tell there's so much thought that went into this game, so many random details, and that was definitely a big part of what made EverQuest special. And I'm hoping to see all those same kind of details, that same level of passion in Pantheon. All those unsolved mysteries, all those mysterious NPCs who are off in the corner and they seem to have some kind of agenda or some weird faction all by themselves, or there's a lot of things that aren't explained to you, but you kind of are like wondering like, hey, why is the clock in Kinos doing this? And there's so many different random details. And I think most people have seen Michael's shenanigans videos on the EverQuest mysteries. He did a video on water and he just did an unbelievable job diving in and unearthing all of these mysteries in Norath that made that world convincing, made it compelling, and made you want to come back and say, you know what was up with that dungeon? I never fully explored that. I need to go figure out what that NPC was all about. I want to go into Neriak, into the third dungeon back, and figure out what was going on back there, because I feel like I'm missing something, and I still haven't explored Kaladin completely. It's just with stuff like that. If a game is compelling a player to explore it, it's probably because of the lore. And it's not because of the fat loots or whatever. I think it's just it's perhaps as big of a deal as the actual design of the items and everything else that's in the game.
Cool. Yeah. So, looking at racial lore, would you prefer to have your lore, the racial lore, advance over time? So your race unearths more about their background over the years of playing the game, or would you like to be thrown in there straight away, have it all to look at and drive into?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I feel like MMOs have tried this to have this evolving world thing. That's really risky, because I feel like when people play these games, they kind of like some level of certainty. Here's an example. Remember in World of Warcraft when they did Cataclysm, they changed so many zones that people loved. And I feel like a lot of people I feel like it was a negative overall for most people. Like the Barons isn't there anymore. And you know, Barons chat, people can't go there and do Barons chat anymore because that doesn't even exist. So I feel like they should kind of just stick with whatever the initial lore is. I think it's a little bit risky to kind of change things too much. It could work. I just think it's really risky.
Valid points.
So I think on this one, I would say there definitely should be a standard amount of lore up front so you know what you're working with when you choose your character. But I don't think I would be opposed to unearthing more, and not necessarily as a game-changing thing. Maybe just lore. You know, each of the races has, you know, quests that they run into. They reach a certain level that delves deeper into the story of their race and just gives them a little bit more knowledge that they may have not known. So as long as you have the standard, like this much, and then these quests to add to it, then you feel like, in this case, you are advancing your story. But I would, like he said, I would definitely be careful with making it change the game a whole lot, because he's right. People like what they bought, the standard thing. And if you go changing it, which WoW's had a hard time with changing a lot of this, that, and the other, it kind of starts to take a downward spiral because it's not what it used to be. So if it was game changing, yeah,
so it's more related to your, you know, your race that you chose. Basically, you unlock their backstory as it goes forward. But I just had a real cool idea. So, what about having, you know, you advance through the game, you unlock your racial lore or whatever, or you basically reach a point where you gain an achievement for reaching a certain point, and you now get a message from in-game giving you a link to a website page on Pantheon that has hidden lore that you basically unlocked. I think that would be pretty cool to see as well, where they kind of like tell the story from the outside and you can unlock that through in-game. I think that would be a pretty cool feature.
You have to pay $5 to unlock that page.
Hey, that's a cash shop idea. Hey, there you go. That's a way to make some money.
See, personally, I like that idea, but I think I would prefer it to be like a video, something a little more.
Hey, we'll let the team grow first before we go to
just,
videos.
Here's a wall of text. Let's read up on this. You know,
we'll let them grow first. All right.
When it comes to reading, I'm kind of lazy. It's like, just tell me what I need to know.
What do you have? What do you have people like? You know, what's Chris Kane for? You know, that's what he does. He'll read you the story.
Right. I'll recline my seat and I'll just close my eyes and listen.
All right. So, centering around the mechanics of the game, when it comes to movement, how do you guys feel that influences your enjoyment of the game itself, and how important is it? I'll start with you, Joe.
I think it's one aspect that is definitely a key component of the gameplay. I think WildStar, I never played WildStar, but I know they were really big on positional tactics. For example, I think they had area effect healing spells where you would have to run there and try to get healed up. And of course, they expanded a lot. You know, Dragon Breath, of course, everyone knows. You know, you don't stand in the fire, don't go into the whelps, all that kind of stuff. But even in classic EverQuest, I thought I was a wizard because I knew that you had to stand behind a melee. I'm sorry, you have to stand behind an NPC and melee them from behind, because then they couldn't use riposte, dodge, and parry. I thought I was like in like some super secret club that, you know, I had like the forbidden knowledge others didn't know about. Because you could actually get killed, you know, if a raid boss riposted on you, you could take a ton of damage from that. So that was a kind of like a minor example of that in EverQuest, and it was cool, you know, that you had to position yourself the right way in order to get that benefit. And I think that's just one of many game mechanics that they could use in an MMO that can make a good player stand out from an average player. Not just position, but also other mechanics like reacting, or some people call them proc abilities. Like, for example, if your target dodges, how quickly do you hit overpower? Like in World of Warcraft, if a rogue dodged you and you were a warrior, you would get overpower over and over again. So you could just keep hitting that. So I think there's a lot of different game mechanics that they can use to separate a good player from a great player. And I think position's definitely one of them.
Yeah, great. And yourself, yeah?
So mechanics are definitely important regardless, because you don't want a standard, what they call the tank and spank fight. Now they are nice to have every once in a while, because it's like, I've already went through all of these that have all these mechanics. It would be just nice to stand here, let my weapon swing, hit the buttons, and hopefully it does and it gets some loot. But without mechanics, you're going to get bored, and you're going to get bored quickly. But you also can't have so many things going on at once, because nobody's going to want to do it. Like tanking, per se, making sure everything's paying attention to you and that you're looking out at all the other mobs that are coming in, from the fight. And then you've got to dodge like this AoE and that AoE. After a while, active mitigation and all this other stuff, it's just like you want to enjoy yourself, but you have this list of things to do just to do your one class. Yeah. So mechanics are needed, but I don't think there should be so many that that's the only thing you have to remember is movement, even though you're the tank and you just got one shot because, whoops, I forgot to hit, a defensive cooldown. And the positionals, like he was saying, is definitely a fun thing to do. I know that the Dragoon in Final Fantasy XIV has a lot of those. And sometimes it's nice because you're forced to go from the back to the side, to the flank, to the back, and that sort of thing. And if you go to the back at the wrong time on a dragon, you get smashed by a tail and you get stunned. So, I mean, it has to be there. It doesn't need to be too much.
Yeah.
But it has to be enjoyable. And it can't all be the same thing of, oh, look, another cleave. Now I know not to stand in front of him, so I'll just stand behind him. And that's the fight. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. I've always found that it's one, maybe two mechanics, depending on what kind of design you're going for on that boss. It's usually all you need.
Yeah,
I've seen some... I mean, it's been a long time since I've played Neverwinter or Neverwinter Nights, whatever it was called. Early in that game, it was all the same thing. You get the boss down to like 20%, it spawns ads. That's all there was. Literally, like out of 13 dungeons or something, that's all they did. And I lost my mind and I quit. It's important to have something different. Yeah, and then, if you remember like some of the older WoW stuff, Blackwing Lair, some of those fights just made you want to rip your hair out. So it's like there's definitely a fine balance to be had. And I don't think we're going to have that problem in Pantheon. Fingers crossed.
Here's the real question. How about, what do they call them? The boxes where you see where something's going to happen, because Final Fantasy XIV has a lot of those, whereas WoW doesn't have them. Telegraphs, yes. I could actually go either way on telegraphs, because sometimes it's nice to be told, where not to stand, instead of going, I'm new to this fight, tell me what to do.
Right.
Silence? Okay, why did you die? I've never done it. I asked you, and you didn't tell me, and there's nothing on the ground saying, don't stand there.
Right. I'm kind of in the same position, too. There are some times where I like them, but there's also just as many times where I feel like, okay, make this a little more challenging, please.
Yeah, I think I've had enough of that.
as long as it's done with a lot of randomness, because these telegraphs are they're built around a mechanic that it's always the same. He puts a big massive ring to his left, he puts a big massive ring to his right, he puts a big massive ring to the center, and he puts 3 rings around him. And it's always the same. If they can, spice that up where it's completely random, but you get the idea, I would be fine with it.
Yeah, I honestly hope that MMOs kind of go and they keep with telegraphs, but they go in a different direction with them, where they use almost like animation of the boss to actually say this something's going to happen. You got to figure out what.
Well, that's what Terra did. Terra were one of the first to explore that idea. That's what they did. Their encounters basically have animations that kind of indicate what they're going to do, but they also have the atypical stereotype telegraph that basically hints at, hey, don't stand in this big massive red ring.
Right.
How about telegraphs that disappear? Gives you 2 seconds. You're like, hey, don't stand in that spot. You're sitting in the spot. You don't see it, you die. But at least you knew that the telegraph was there and be like, hey,
right.
There was a telegraph right under you. Did you not see it?
I'm sure I'm going to get more hate mail over this one, but like, because we had talked about in a previous show with rating how if you actually have a gentle curve to the intro and then decide to ramp things up in difficulty, it's a little more accessible and you get more people in that almost subculture of the game. I could definitely see that's where telegraphs could potentially be helpful, where the first, the first tier of rating has telegraphs so that people can understand what's going on and they don't have to worry about, let's go read this 4-page guide on how to do this. But then later on, there's no telegraphs. There's just like, figure it out or pucker up.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll keep moving on because this could be a show in and of itself.
That's true.
So, Joe, when it comes to like the world mechanics, I'm curious, what do you think of how the world mechanics in Pantheon are like right now, and this current state? Are you happy with it?
So I'm not sure what you're aiming for here, but the first thing I thought of was zone design. It was the first thing.
Let's see if I can clarify, because my brain has just kind of like jumped a rail.
Are you referring to like the weather effects, maybe?
Well, like just general mechanics, we'll say, to start it off with. General mechanics, like if we've watched like Black Rose Keep, how everything's been kind of progressing and coming along. Have you been happy with what you're seeing?
In general, yeah. Sometimes I'm not, like, some videos out there on YouTube are better quality than others, and that's a little bit of a source of frustration for me, because all the different streamers kind of have different video quality, and then sometimes I don't want to see like the overlays and all that stuff, so I just kind of want to see what the graphics look like themselves, and some of them are 30 frames per second, and so it's kind of hard to make.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to, but some of the streams I've seen, I'm like, wow, it looks really awesome, and other streams I'm like, like the video recording quality isn't quite as good as some of the others. So, but based on the ones that I have seen that look great, I'm like, hey, they're making a lot of progress, and they're probably not releasing it this year, so they're going to be game development is highly iterative. They're going to be making a lot of little improvements. Once they have all of the pieces in place, it's easy to start making little things like that a little bit better. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not a big graphics guy anyway. We talked about that with, Asmongold, and Asmongold wants the red circles of death and people dying everywhere. I don't care. I'm an EverQuest guy. The graphics aren't that great, but I'm playing it 20 years later. So the graphics aren't what make me tap dance for an MMORPG. I'm looking for gameplay, lore. I'm looking for engaging, community-driven games where players are solving the problems instead of LFG tools and features in the game solving problems for everybody.
You do know that this is now going to be on YouTube. There's going to be like a round 5 or something going on.
Asmongold reacts to Joe Leonard.
Uh-oh.
And we got dragged into it.
All I'm going to say is, hey, different strokes for different folks. What works for one may not work for others. And
he's not playing Black Desert Online. That's all I'm going to.
I'll say there's nothing wrong with liking shiny graphics, because there are times where even I'm playing on like Project 1999, I'm sitting there going, I need to turn on the new models, because I hate the old ones. I looked at them for so long that I just despise them. They look like shaky old men from freaking like something out of like Star Fox 64. It's just horrible. But whatever, it's all good either way.
That's blasphemy.
That is one in a very long list of my own personal blasphemy. So that's fine. So, Beard Sage, what do you think about the current state of the mechanics in Pantheon?
I look forward to like I said, what I kind of thought you were referring to is like the weather aspect of going into a certain area, and you have to have, you know, that resistance on, or you're not going to be able to get into it without dying. I don't even think there's an MMO that does that I actually know of, or one that I don't even care of. But
the new Zelda.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. But it's definitely going to make the game interesting. Mechanics out in the world are probably one of the most important things, because it's what you're going to be doing most of your career in that game is leveling out in the world. So the ability to die is important, because if there's no chance of you dying, you're just like, well, I'm going to run and kill this. Congratulations, we're back at step one. But you also don't want the concept of, you know, every time you fight something, having the ability to die. Yeah. So there needs to be like a balance, and it seems like they're going to make this balance appropriate. Like, if I accidentally take on this one mob, it could kill me. Now, if that other mob over there comes, I'm dead. Just simply put, I know I'm dead. I might as well start running or just take the death. So the mechanics in it is going to be what's important of, am I going to die? Am I not going to die? You know, will I be able to use all my abilities before it's dead? Because that's one thing about when you're playing a game is you have all of these abilities, but you only get to use like one or two before the mob's dead. That's not really that exciting. You want to use everything in your repertoire, maybe not on all mobs, but at least not in a dungeon or not in a raid. Right. So it looks to be that they're going to try to put those things together to where your character's using its entire utility when it needs to, and not just, you know, in a raid or a dungeon. It's like, oh, I have this defensive that I never use, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Joe, how would you like to see the in-game mechanics of the economy handled? Would you prefer to see like a global auction house, or, you know, city-based trade, local trade around, you know, the areas of the you know, the individual cities, or would you prefer something like the East Commonlands?
You know, in the past, I've kind of been a grumpy old man on this issue, but you know, I was like, oh, you know, in my day, we didn't have no auction house. We walked uphill both ways to these.
Back in my day, we had monochrome CRT monitors.
That's right. We played on CRT monitors, and so it's like
with bull eyes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like
stop up. Yeah.
I don't know. But to be honest, I've kind of repented on that slightly, and here's the reason why. So the bartering economy in EverQuest is great. I love it because everyone sort of goes to the same area, and they actually meet up with living, breathing electronic avatars and actually interact with them, actually trade the goods. You know, so it's the player. I like that in principle because the player is going and solving the problem, which I'm a big advocate of. I think if the players are solving the problem, that's great. But when you give that power to the auction house, now it's the game solving a problem for all the players at the cost of convenient, you know, because it's so convenient, right? That's why we do it. Now, I think back to World of Warcraft, and I have to say, well, the auction house was really convenient, and it was really easy to sell things, really easy. You know, do I really want to sell all my large radiant shards by hand in these commons? So I was like, I can see the pros and cons on both sides on this. And I believe Final Fantasy XI had city-based auction houses. I don't know if you guys can correct me or confirm that for me. I think like if you could go to Junon, I think was the name of the capital city. I think their auction house was different from the one if you went to where the Taru, they had their city, and I think they actually had a separate auction house.
Maybe chat can confirm that somewhere.
Maybe
chat.
Maybe
those are two words I've never heard before in my life.
Yeah, nope, never played 11.
I've never played 11 either.
So never got that far.
So I think they kind of had a compromise of. They kind of at least decentralized the auction houses, so it wasn't completely convenient and easy. If Pantheon had auction houses, it wouldn't break my heart, and I wouldn't tweet Brad and make a hate video about it. Like the big ones for me are the no instance dungeons. You cannot do instance dungeons, and I don't think they're even thinking about it, but LFG, LFR, or anything like that.
Yeah.
You have to have that shared community within the game world where people are forming groups, meeting people, training their friends and their foes on accident and on purpose. I think that's an important part of the game. And so for me, I would be okay with an auction house. It wouldn't ruin my life.
Cool. What about you, Beard?
I'll have to agree with that. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to an auction house. It's going to allow those people who want to go out and get their stuff themselves. It's not going to stop them in the slightest. But if they need to go get something quickly, because who says they have 1 hour to play that day? And they're like, I'm so close to making this item, crafting it. I need one object. So you go to the auction house, you pick it up, bam, and you're like, yes, this hour was worth something. And it's going to help those people who just don't have as much time. But one thing from, you guys ever played Warframe? Anybody?
Heard of it.
So Warframe, if I remember, they actually have it to where you can open yourself up as a shop while standing in one of the hubs.
Okay,
I think that would actually be, yeah, it'd be pretty cool to be standing there. I didn't even know EverQuest actually, they turned into, like, when I played it originally, I don't think that was in there. But in Warframe, they actually turn into a shop. Like, they stand there, you can go click on them like they're an NPC, and these are the items that they're selling to you, and you can buy them. Which, that would be, they kind of fill that role of, do I want to go interact with people, or do I need to get this now? Because they may not have it, in the trade area. We
would love to, we kind of expanded on a discussion like this, where you could actually open up a shop in the major cities yourself. You actually have a storefront in the cities where you come from, and also have like a travelling hut of sorts where you can set up like a campfire, and you can turn on that you're going to sell goods, and people can run by your campsite while you're resting with your friends and chit-chatting and having fun, and they can actually look at your wares and purchase. That would be pretty cool to see, like of a nice mix-up.
But it would also be pretty cool if it was was done based on the cities, so the auction houses. And if you were in the one city and you really needed the one item, but it could only be found in the city across the world, then you're out of luck, and you have to either track there or ask a friend to buy it for you in that place. So it does create that different mechanic. So let's switch to trade skilling. Beard, your view of crafting in MMOs, do you make use of them, or what is your feeling about them?
I make use of the crafting, but I don't generally do more than getting it to like max level, and I may make things for myself, but I very rarely dip into like getting into the auction house and like selling it to people. It's just, I'm more of the get in and like fight things more than stand in the town and craft. Like, it is, some of it's enjoyable. Like I didn't do much in Final Fantasy XIV where crafting is like completely separate from the classes. People enjoy that stuff, and I could see Pantheon going, if they decided to, go pretty far with having them separated, so the people are like, I don't like fighting, but I will make you whatever you want. Yeah, because they'll go out and get the stuff, or you go out and get stuff. They're like, cool, let me make this for you. And I feel like Final Fantasy XIV did that pretty well, because it's completely separate from everything else. And to me specifically, I would just be like, cool, can I use your help? I'm the adventurer. I just need your stuff if you can help me out. And it kind of adds a different, economy type thing to the game, where instead of going to the auction house and buying it, somebody might be standing there going, hey, I'm a blacksmith crafter level 500. I can make this, 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 and this. And you're just like, can I get that? I have everything that you need. Can I get that? And then there goes more of that, getting along with other people and making groups. And who knows, you might actually pull them into the adventuring side, or they might pull you into the crafting side, and you've just opened a whole nother world that you may have not done before.
Yeah. You're the second person now that I've heard that's a pretty good crafting system in that game. So yeah. And yourself, Joe, what are your thoughts on that?
So when I play MMOs, I generally think of, I think most would agree, that I think of the PvE game loop as the main content of the game. And I think of crafting as kind of this this system that can help fix problems about. I think if I was going to implement a crafting system, I think it should be something that kind of fixes some of the problems that PvE game loop creates. Like some of the big problems that I see are item inflation. Like there are so many items, and every day that you're on that game continues to exist, there's going to be more and more items that are in the economy, which creates this downward, which it creates inflation, and then all of the items become more accessible and more just worth less in terms of currency. And I feel like crafting is a great way to address that, because you could have systems like smithing, leathersmithing, jewel crafting. You know, you could basically create systems that will incentivize getting those items out of the economy. Like I know, like World of Warcraft, for example, had disenchanting, which removed items from the economy all the time, but you got something in return, and then you could enchant armor using those materials. I think that's a good direction to go. I hope that Pantheon goes in that direction. And and like
they have the salvaging, so that kind of sounds like almost like that.
Yeah, I hope they go in that direction, and then basically make it so that they can improve whatever existing armor, you know, make that stuff better, a little bit better. Now, one system that I really liked, I just got to give them props. In Phantasy Star Universe, not that many people played it. It was kind of a little different, but they had a cool system where you could level up all of your weapons and armor, and you could level it up from like +1 all the way to +10. But if you failed, the item exploded and broke, which was like kind of and every level. So if you got to level 1, level 2, you could level it all the way up to 10. Every level, like a higher and higher chance of failure. So basically what that did was it was like this little mini game where you could, could I get a level 10 short sword of the Akesha? Yeah, maybe, but it might explode into a million pieces when I try. So it kind of gave players a reason to go in and collect an extra one. It's like, oh, well, I'll risk it. I'll see if I can get this to +3. And if it explodes, oh, well, I got to back up. That's a +2. So basically it helps get items out of the economy. And so I think that's one of the big problems that the PvE game loop creates that crafting can address.
Yeah. Well, you kind of half answered the question I'm about to ask. So, in current MMOs, we all know that crafting is very one-dimensional. It's almost a Farmville within the game. Just mindless, repetitive clicking.
Yep.
So, Joe, how would you shake up the crafting system in Pantheon?
I think I did answer that question already. I think, man, I'm telling you, I think the Asian MMOs kind of go that route where it's almost like a gambling system, right? Where
it is.
I think that's kind of like a bigger thing in their culture, where like the pachinko parlors and all that kind of stuff. I used to live in Japan for a few years, and there was a lot of those. And I think it would be cool if they implemented a system that was kind of like almost a gambling mechanic into making your Cloak of Flames or whatever items a little better. Of course, that would be a little tough to balance, but I think they could pull it off as long as it wasn't something like too beneficial. Maybe plus stamina or plus dex or whatever, or maybe making certain abilities a little bit better. I think it would be cool to see. I would like to see them try something like that.
Cool. Yeah. How about you, Mr. Beard Sage?
This time this is another one of those ones that would take some time to think out.
That's kind of why I asked it.
Yeah,
I don't even know the answer. It's like I should give him a little bit of time.
But it's all good. So while he was talking, he gave me some quick thoughts here. One, like I already said, Final Fantasy's idea of it being a class, like separate, it would shake up a lot of things. Like I know it's already in 14, but most MMOs don't do that. It's probably one of the only ones. All of the rest of them, like you said, Farmville, go make it, put it in the auction house, wear it, whatever you're going to do. That would definitely make those crafting individuals come into the game, because they don't want to adventure. They're like, I don't really want to go kill mobs that much, but I love making things. well, let me tell you about the crafting system. It's excellent. And then you get those people into the game. Yeah. And another thing is changing up the materials when you're making crafting. So a lot of them, you go get 10 of this, 5 of that, 8 of that, 900 of this. You put it together and you make one item. And it has generally the same stats on it. So it'd be a lot more in depth if you actually took the time to go, all right, you need these items as the base, but you want the stamina and strength stat. You have to go get these 2 specific items.
Have you been watching our shows? We talked about this recently.
Admit to that. Nobody here should ever admit to that.
Like 2 weeks ago, we exact same idea.
It adds depth. It adds depth to it because most of the time, like I said, especially in WoW, you go get all stuff, you put it together, it builds, and it comes with random, like, might have avoidance, might have speed, but it has your standard, like, versatility, mastery, crit. Yeah. That's kind of boring, but if I had control, like somebody comes and goes, I need this piece, can you get it with strength, stamina, and crit and haste? I can. These are the base items, which I already have. You go get me this stone, this jewel, this pearl, and this. And you got it.
Yeah.
And yes, that does sound an awful lot like Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh, is that, I hadn't played that one.
Well, you even needed an item to determine the appearance of that item.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
But to be fair, ESO does have a pretty good crafting system. Even I'm somewhat enjoying it.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I hadn't played ESO yet, so I didn't know about that one.
So let's go and take a look at you guys from another personal perspective with your content that you put out there on YouTube and Twitch and whatnot. So Joe, tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel and why you actually decided to cover Pantheon.
So I've been playing Civilization Revolution on my channel for like 6 years now. I'm like the only guy in the world covering that game. So that was my niche for a long time. But I ended up making this 100-minute video just waxing poetically about how amazing EverQuest was. I made a video called 20 Reasons EverQuest is the greatest game of all time. And it got a lot of positive feedback, and it got me just thinking about what a great game that was. And it made me wish that I could stream a game like that now. It would be awesome if I could just jump on and stream Pantheon, a great game like that. But we don't really have a modern game like that now that appeals to me. A lot of these games, I don't know, maybe Final Fantasy XIV is pretty good. I haven't really given it a shot, but I'm really interested in Pantheon because of the pedigree behind it, because of Brad McQuaid and others that worked on EverQuest are also working on this project. And I have a lot of faith in those individuals that they know what the formula is to make a great MMORPG. So that's why I started covering it, and I hope it comes out soon, sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
awesome. So, Beard, what about you? Tell us a bit about your channel and what it is you do.
So, I'm going to be honest. I only do Twitch. I actually don't do YouTube videos now.
No shame in that.
Yeah, it may come into the future. I don't have the most time, so I spend more of it streaming on Twitch than I do making videos.
The question goes both ways, so don't worry about it.
Okay, but just to say, I do kind of plan to go in that direction. Like I said earlier, when the Cold Tyrants come out in WoW, it's going to be really my first experience, like, quote-unquote healing. I don't generally heal. I think maybe a handful of times at most. So I think what I'm going to do is, if I find myself liking the Cold Tyrants and how they play, I've done a little bit on the PTR, I'm going to probably do some videos on actually my experience with almost never healing and then just suddenly taking on this healing role, and how it's changed my playstyle in terms of always tanking and taking the damage, or being the one who deals the damage to, oh, I can't let you die, that sort of thing. And I think it's going to be it's going to be kind of like maybe a Let's Play type thing. So I think that'll be actually pretty cool. And when it comes to Pantheon, I'm hoping that with doing these YouTube videos with, or I might just do it on Twitch, who knows, but with doing the videos around Twitch, learning healing, that it will kind of point me in the direction of, what content to look for. And then I will take that and push that into when I start making content for Pantheon. Because even if I don't make videos, I'll be streaming it probably a good portion of the time. So if it's not in a video, it'll definitely be on one of my streams and whatever I'm doing.
So I guess, Lexa, you can just skip the next question because they literally just both answered it.
Yeah. It works out that way.
Where's my keys, man? I want my alpha key, man. You better send it to me.
So, Joe, where and how can people get in touch with you?
Easiest way to get in touch with me is just simply on Twitter. You can @ me all you want. I'm pretty responsive, so you can contact me there, or you can search for Joe Leonard's Discord. If you want to jump on my Discord, I'm there as well.
Great. And yourself, Bit?
That's easy. I'll answer this one for you. Just harass him on Twitter, and boom, he's there.
Yeah, hey, I don't mind the harassment. I'm okay with that. Talking to people is awesome. But yes, like he said, you can find me on Twitter. Find me on Twitch. I stream 5 nights out of 7 in a week. Those would probably be the two best. I have my own Discord, but I don't know. It's mostly my friends. But I mean, if you get in there and you want to contact me, I generally answer whatever. Like, I'm generally an open book on most of that stuff. So those are probably the best places.
Why was I expecting if you can get in, you've earned it.
Exactly.
So let's get a little bit, just touch on some design thing here. Joe, how do you think Pantheon should evolve over time? Like, do you feel like maybe the cities should expand, or maybe just strictly the map, or anything else?
Yeah, this is a really tough question. I am sure that game designers really struggle with this one because I feel like every MMORPG gets worse with every expansion. And the reason for that is the world just gets so big, and the world gets bigger with no consideration for server population size, how many concurrent players are on it. And then the world ends up feeling empty, and it's just like a giant. So it's like, if you looked at metrics for EverQuest, for example, just as a point of reference, how many people were in each zone on average during Classic versus each successive in Kunark? How many people were in each zone on average in Kunark? How many people in each zone on average in Velius? I mean, the number of zones just keeps going up and up and up, and then you end up with a world that feels really empty. So that's not good. That's not a good user experience to go into a massively multiplayer online role-playing game and find empty zones everywhere.
I mean, it would be also cool to see like an expansion come out, and guess what? It's for newbies. It's for level 1 to 10. With
not even just that, but there's something for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you mix it up, and that would be actually a pretty cool thing to look at. So, Brad, if you're listening, consider actually when you do an expansion that you look at everybody. All the new people coming in. They can dabble up in the new expansion maybe.
Use the original EverQuest Kunark expansion as a perfect example, in my opinion, because you added a new race. I don't think there was a new class then, because the new class came later. But you had a full line of zones to question that were brand new. Even people that weren't Ixars wanted to go there. You added, amazing quests. It was just honestly one of the best, well-rounded and well-thought-out expansions for EverQuest.
The best thing about it is that it didn't completely obsolete everything from Classic either.
Right.
Like, a Cloak of Flames was still a really awesome item.
Exactly.
But World of Warcraft went the other direction, where an expansion comes out and everything is suddenly worthless.
Yeah.
Useless.
Like getting that, what was it called? I keep forgetting Thunder Fury because I had that.
Yep.
And then Burning Crusade comes out and it's like, kill this Hellboar, and I got a green sword of the owl, and it's like 5 times better.
That's what kind
That's
of drove us away from EverQuest 2 as well, because that's exactly the same thing. You know, they follow that same path. The new expansion comes out, and everything you have is useless.
Yeah.
Your stats get thrown way out of proportion. And now they added a new skill system where your old skill system is completely useless to you. It has no effect. It's like, why do that?
Yeah, I think they have to be really careful about that. I think they have to be, when the new expansion comes out, don't just put crazy items in just so people will buy the game. If it's a good expansion, the players are going to be compelled to buy it. And don't just throw numbers at the player base. You have to be really careful what numbers you're putting on those items.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And to answer the question, I think I don't feel like the world should just keep growing like that. Maybe just add dungeons. I honestly don't know what the perfect answer is. Like maybe just a couple world zones. Or maybe they would. Maybe if the world got big enough, maybe they would just start combining servers. But then people are going to complain about that. I mean, like, if your world gets bigger, maybe you need more concurrent players on that server.
Maybe they should just, don't take the core examples of WoW, or WoW not so much, Daybreak. You can look at the calendar, you can mark it on the calendar exactly to the day and the time, expansion each year. Maybe, give it a few years before you bring out an expansion.
Yeah, I think they should slow it down. Look at Project 1999. It's been how many years? 8, 9 years? 3 expansions. But the server's still slam packed every night.
Yeah.
Slow it down. I think that's true.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Beard Sage, what do you think?
Yeah, that is a tough question, because when you're a company pushing out an MMO, you want people to play it. But you don't want to segregate people that can't keep up with it or they can't purchase it. But you don't want to leave them, you don't want to leave the people who are already playing it, behind in the Stone Age of, I have now leveled to max and I've done the same raid for the past 3 years. It's not enjoyable. You're going to need, it's a tough question from especially their side as much as it is mine on like what I would like to see, because if you do come out with stuff too fast, then you're going to get behind. But if you don't come out with stuff fast enough, you're going to go to other other MMOs in between.
Beard, how about this then? How about a raid that actually takes you 3 years to complete?
Oh man, that's got to be a pretty tough raid.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Although I'm a big believer in having overlapping content for expansion. I'm not saying doing a straight parallel with, like, Kunark as an example. You could go 1 to 50 and this new expansion. That's, to me, is a parallel expansion. But if you overlap them a little bit, it gives the people who weren't there yet a way to branch out into new areas. Maybe bring some friends that are leveling alts with them into these new zones, and plus the people who are at end game or max level have all these new zones right from the get-go.
We will...
go ahead.
I just want to quickly promote ourselves real quick, but we will be doing a show fairly soon about expansions again. We've already done, I think, 1 or 2 on them, where we're going to look at cliffhangers as well. Like people have mentioned in chat, and like we mentioned before, look at the lore. If the lore of the expansion has some kind of connection to the old world, then the old world should be affected as well. Hence, change some things in the old world. Take care to what you actually describe in the lore that could affect the old world as well. So we'll be talking about that fairly soon, and looking at cliffhangers actually, where expansions aren't just all about new gear, new level, new race, new class. It's about, you wanting to actually go there because you're itching to find out what happens next.
Yep, exactly.
Okay with that.
Maybe they should go the split paw route. You remember when they added split paw to South Karana?
Yeah,
I mean, maybe something along those lines. I don't know. Like, I feel it gives me. I feel like it's weird to change the game world. Like really, like they don't know. Like, I could see adding a little bit, but
the Ixars have been on Kuna for hundreds of years, but this is the first we're learning about it.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like it's just, I could believe a little bit, but how many expansions? Like EverQuest is an extreme example, but how many zones did they add to the game world? It's like they really didn't know any of that. It's just it's hard for me to buy it from a lore standpoint. I feel like it would be more believable to just,
especially in some games where they don't take the time to really have the lore give you a good transition into that.
Yeah, how do they have that story still makes sense?
It's like a blanket that's stitched up very loosely. You just
sometimes you have to build your lore as you go, because for the most part, Warcraft has kind of run out. I mean, they still have some things they haven't touched, but they're having to build some stuff that they didn't have before, and that involves making new places. Like Kol Tiras is pretty important. Zandalar, we knew about the Zandalar trolls back in the original game, but we didn't specifically meet them. But now we're actually on their land. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the Kol Tirans, we knew were locked away for a while on their own little island. Now, how we didn't see them crossing the sea back and forth, I don't know. I haven't figured that out. So, game magic.
Josh, I think this question can also be skipped. I think I think they kind of answered it, and we kind of, I kind of revealed too much. So we'll skip this question on design, but we'll go into our final segment where we get to the most important question. But before we do the important question, though, Lex, I want to remind everybody again. But let's go and look at this. Joe, would you attend a Pantheon type event, and how far would you travel to get there, and what would get you there?
Yeah, definitely. I would certainly be interested in any kind of event that's going on, especially if it's Pantheon related. Absolutely. I wanted to go to PAX this year, but I think it was a little too late. Missed the boat there. So next year, I'll definitely go to PAX East, especially if anyone from Visionary Realms is going, or if there's any kind of Pantheon related event. And now I guess you're talking about some kind of fan-oriented event, something like that. Is that I haven't heard. Have there been Pantheon? Is that a thing?
It's basically the term that's been used to call Pantheon getting together with the community.
Is that what the fans are called?
That's what it's called. It's called the Pantheon.
I like it. Okay,
that sounds a lot like FanFest from Final Fantasy XIV.
Okay, yeah, I think EverQuest had events like that. Yeah, I would definitely be interested in going. That would be cool to just to meet up, just meet up and network and share. With other like-minded people. I've done that with other games as well. So I think if it was East Coast, for me, I'm in Maryland, so that would be easy. I'm kind of in the middle here, so maybe if it was Boston or maybe in Virginia or something like that, that would definitely be something that would be convenient for me. West Coast, that'd be a little harder.
So let me add then and put us on the spot. Would you attend a Pantheon themed event?
This is the first time I'm hearing this.
What? It's new.
Is that Vanguard?
No, it's Voices of Terminus Pantheon.
Pantheon.
It's just we took the F and we put the V there and called it. We have our own Pantheon.
Okay. we're so creative.
Nobody would do it. Very nice.
What about you? What about you, Beard?
Oh man, games, and I won't get too in depth here, but games were my life for a specific reason. Mm-hmm. So anything game related, I am into. Unfortunately, I can't always go to them. Taking care of a family can be tough. I don't, money wise, I don't make a whole lot, so it'd be hard for me to do these things. But I mean, if I can gather the money, of course. I wanted to go to TwitchCon last year, but unfortunately, paying for a new roof. It takes a large chunk of change out of you, so I didn't get to do that.
That'll be next year.
Yeah, anytime that, like if the cash was there, I would go to many different things. TwitchCon, BlizzCon, Pantheon had something, I'd go to that. I might actually try to go to DragonCon. I've gotten a group of friends that are now streamers as we've recently started connecting, and several of us are going to try to go to DragonCon down in Atlanta. And it's going to be super cool to meet all these streamers. So most definitely, if the stuff is in place for me to go, I would have no problem going. It doesn't matter if it's here, probably not so much in the United States because that makes things so much more difficult. But I mean, anywhere in the U.S., yeah, if it's everything is in line, no problem, I would go.
Cool.
Very nice. So, guys, fast forward 3 years. What do you imagine Pantheon to have evolved into? Joe?
Well, he's got his alpha key.
Yeah,
He's got his alpha key. He's still waiting.
I'm hoping I finally installed it. That would be nice. That would be a great achievement. Now, honestly, I think everyone's speculating, but I'm thinking early. How about March 2021? I'm thinking maybe it's out around there. Maybe March 16th, the release date of EverQuest. But at that time, let me see what's that. Yeah, by that time, hopefully it's a healthy release. You know, has a few bumps, I'm sure. With a game this technical and complicated, MMOs are probably the most complicated kind of game to make. So I would expect some bumps. Hopefully, you know, they respond to they stay connected with the audience, and hopefully people love it. You know, I'm kind of betting everything on it. I made a video called, you know, the MMOs, the last hope for MMOs. I feel like Pantheon is the last hope at this point. I mean, there's a couple good ones out there, but just for me,
I think everybody feels that way.
Yeah, I feel like they're just getting into all this cash shop stuff, and it's just like, man, is anyone making games because they love games anymore, or where did that go? Like, gamers aren't making these games anymore. Instead it's suits who are just thinking about short-term financial concerns.
Exactly.
So, you know, in the 90s, it wasn't like that. It was gamers, a bunch of dorks sitting around coding up something that they wanted to play.
Yeah, basically, the bills are paid. Yep. All right, let's work on this expansion.
Yeah, because they loved it. You know, and game development is an art form that is passion-driven. It's an art. You cannot make
monetize.
You can't fake it, man. You just cannot fake passion in game development. You can see it. The players can see it. And it bleeds through into the experience. Now, yeah, I'm hoping by that time I'm enjoying raiding, and I'm hoping PvP. Can I just throw that in there, by the way? Can I go ahead and inject this? This is my bully. This is my pulpit, okay? My bully pulpit. I'm going to smash this. I want Warsong Gulch like PvP. I want Capture the Flag in Pantheon. Because here's the reason. Because as streamers, people like watching PvE. It's okay. But PvP is what people really brings in the viewers. So I'm hoping that the team at Visionary Realms really thinks about that and say, hey, the gaming industry's changed a lot in 20 years. And you know what? People are going to could discover this game if they watched Pantheon PvP, right? Like if they had, you're gonna crucify me for this, but the worst, something like Capture the Flag should be in there. And I also think they should consider, you ready? Battle Royale. Okay. I know. Think about it, because imagine MMORPG Battle Royale. I think that would be very fun to watch. And you know, they had arena.
That's Ashes of Creation.
Yeah, they had arenas in EverQuest where everyone just ran in and killed each other. That's Battle Royale. Okay. Now, okay, a little bit different. You got the walls and all that stuff. But I think it could work. I think it would be very fun. And I think people have kind of recoiled just because Battle Royale is a trend right now. So people kind of like, oh, it's trendy. Yeah. So I'm kind of grossed out. But I think it could work. And I think it could bring in an audience via Twitch by all these streaming platforms. But really, PvE should be the centerpiece. I agree.
Now, you know, done right, I agree. That Battle Royale could potentially be beneficial.
It won't be balanced, but I don't care.
Right. I do definitely agree with that. You know, in terms of an entertainer or content creator's point of view, PvP is much more interesting than PvE, because PvE's got a lot of downtime, a lot of just, you know, sitting around the water cooler talking to your friends kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until you get into like the really good rating scene.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it out there to say that is not the battle royale is not my thing, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
You know, the whole battle royale thing that just really gets me. Which, you know, it's not about the game itself. It's, you know, for these companies at this point in time, it's a cash grab. Period.
Yep.
That's all it is. And if they can get around that perspective, then I'm all for a battle royale. You know, as long as it's not like we're going to put in a cash shop and you can spend money to get to the max level and blah 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 blah. If that's all gone and it's just about the battle royale and the mechanics in there, then I would be all over that.
Imagine being a bard kiting in battle royale. Come on, you know that sounds awesome. I'd be bard kiting the whole entire zone. You know, I think I just want to do that.
As a guy who has recently discovered the joy of the bard thanks to Project 1999, I would definitely say that I would certainly enjoy running around, charming players, kiting them,
jumping them off cliffs.
Yep, and getting the F out of Dodge before they roast my A.
Oh, that'd be great.
And yourself, Beard, after 3 years after, let's say, launch of the game, then what do you think Pantheon would be?
And us rambling on for 3 years. Now you can answer the question.
It's all good. It's all good stuff. But before I answer that question, I do want to say, can we not use BR? Can we use FFA, free for all? Can we use that? I like that term much better.
That to me, that is a much better term.
Okay, battle
royale is a buzzword to me.
A free for all is. Halo, I think, did it at one point. I mean, a bunch of games have done it. It'd be quite enjoyable to, like you said, go in there who's supposed to be your teammate is now your enemy, kill your friends. That, I think, is what you're leading toward. That would definitely be enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen much on PvP and Pantheon. I don't know if they're going to come out with it, but I agree. In 3 years, if it's not on the table right now, I surely hope that it is on the table in that time period, because PvE can make a game go to a certain point, but you're right, PvE only goes so far. Now when you down the boss, it's like, yay, papers are flying everywhere, we did it, but then it's gone. PvP is constant, like, oh, I just killed him, moving on to the next, I've killed him, I've killed 18 people without dying, and the chat's like, that's awesome, I've never seen that before, the most killing blows and all this other stuff.
You know
that go ahead.
I just wanted to say, you know, I would be that guy in PvP that would have a list, and I would be there going, I got killed by him, I got killed by him, I got killed by him.
Personally, I'm a little biased towards PvP because, frankly, when it comes to an MMO, I am not good at it. I'm not even gonna run my mouth and try to talk big. I suck at PvP and MMORPGs.
Yeah, no, I'm no good at it either, but for the game to last, which we've all shown that we are going, we want this game to succeed. It's going to have both PvE and PvP. Without it, it's going to lack. You're not going to get that quality content.
I think if you look at EverQuest, obviously the PvP was an afterthought. Like they're just like, here's the ability to do PvP. Oh yeah, pumice stones and fear and all that stuff. Yeah, who cares? It's totally unbalanced and makes no sense, but here it is. Just go ahead and do some PvP in EverQuest. And if they release Pantheon with a PvP system like that one, it's going to be bad for the game. So I'm hoping that they're putting some development cycles into thinking about that.
They've already mentioned that they do plan to have PvP rule sets, and they've already mentioned as well that the design of the classes is split. You're not going to have this unbalancing constantly going back and forth where they mess around with the PvP system and it affects the PvE. You're going to have your PvE system class design. You're going to have your PvP class design for those two specific rule sets, and so that's going to help them go a long way. So they're already thinking about it. Now, is PvP going to be there at launch or anything like that? We don't know. That's something we'll have to wait and see, because their core focus is obviously PvE, the group focus and everything. But so...
Yep.
Yeah, they're definitely going to... what's the phrase I'm looking for? I can't think of what it is. They're definitely going to sell themselves short if they don't have PvP. Right now, it's one of the bigger things, and unless sometime in the next however long it takes for it to come out, 2020, 2021. I doubt it's going to go anywhere. Well, there you go. They're going to shoot themselves in the foot if they don't at least attempt to have something and have it thought out to where it's not, like he said, not an afterthought, because it's important. People enjoy it, and a lot of the, let's just say, high content, like WoW streamers specifically, do PvP. You until recently didn't see them really raid, so PvP is like the top thing. Only like 3 or 4 actually raid and are like top of the list on Twitch. The rest of them PvP streamers. So that's gonna get Pantheon out there on Twitch, Mixer, whatever.
Eyes on it.
Yep, and that's what you need if you want your MMO to stand out among the rest and to stick with it. I mean, look at WoW; it's been out for 2005, it's all 14 years. Yeah, it's had PvP since the beginning.
Yeah, they wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel either. Just think of the arena system in World of Warcraft. That is perfect for streaming.
Yep. Yeah,
5 versus 5, 3 versus 3. I mean, that would be awesome to watch.
Oh, yeah. We even brought in the idea of having that on a PvE server where the PvEers, or the people that don't want to participate necessarily in the PvP, they would actually stipulate how the battle's going to happen, what kind of weaponry you from your class would use. So if you're not typically, a bow user or a dagger user, you could still use those in PvP, and it would kind of like, mess up the whole grouping aspect in the situation going forward. So
throws a wrench into an already chaotic situation.
Exactly. Anyway,
plus PvEers get to have their troll on instead of the other way around.
So
spectating would be interesting.
Yeah.
Before we move into the most important question of all, I just wanted to say thank you again for everybody, Joe, Beard, and chat. No, the community. We've reached 150 shows, and we're coming close to our 3rd year anniversary, and it's all because of you guys, being there, supporting us, coming onto our shows, engaging with us. We couldn't have been here and wouldn't have made it this far if it wasn't for you guys. So a big thank you to everyone. And this is actually a premiere today that we have this player Q&A with Joe and Beard. And it happened so spontaneously with Beard. I mean, it was like 10 minutes, to go before the show goes live, and hey, you're coming. I guess you're coming on. So
it all happened because I decided to run my mouth on Twitter.
Yep, and
I'm okay with that.
So a big thank you to you guys, and obviously to VR as well for being so awesome, and supporting us as well in our bumpy, long journey that has been a hell of a ride, and we will carry on doing what we're doing and entertaining you guys, and a big thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It was actually really nice. It's been a while since I've been thrown into a situation where I had to think on my feet. So
hey, you did a good job.
Got that stuff going again. I think kind of died out.
I think this brings me now to an idea of doing a new show. Where a battle. We'll do a battle royale, player versus player, where one player is actually allowed to prep, and we just bring in some random guy who gets thrown on the spot. I think that would be a pretty cool thing. And we'll basically we'll have a pool where people can actually bet who's gonna win.
I would probably watch that. Yeah.
Yeah, you could use a straw poll. Pull a straw poll on stream.
Yeah.
There you go.
That sounds actually really cool. Because I just experienced it. It was fun, so I could see that being entertaining for lots of people. What do you think? So
you're the front runner, Edge.
Who should we invite to next week's show?
Actually, this was actually a test run, but nobody knows it. So, Lex, bring up that most important question, please. Everybody's dying.
Yes, the only question that really matters. Joe.
Yep.
Who is the VOT host with the most? And there is a wrong answer.
There is a wrong answer.
I have to pick one, my favorite.
Yeah.
I'll go with Yarnilla.
That
was the wrong answer.
No!
Beard Sage, who is the VOT host with the most?
Oh man, you know what? And this is not just because of this, but because of my Twitter experience. Lexer. I have to go with Lexer. amazing.
See,
on Twitter,
that's
it was
the right
perfect.
answer.
It led us to this. So I have to admit, that was definitely fantastic. Just to jump on Twitter, go through all this, get home, and be like, "Bruh, you're jumping on here. What? I'm not. I haven't even showered. My hair's not done.
You haven't got the dreads in your beard yet.
Yeah, no, man, it's not prepared."
So, and chat, Twitch chat, be warned. We might call you out to come onto the show spontaneously. So,
this will be fun.
you know, look out. And don't be scared. You know, we don't bite. Maybe Lexa, but we don't bite. You know, come on, have fun. You can see I really enjoyed myself today. So,
this was a lot of fun.
Oh, Shadow stopped by to say hello.
So,
one of the kittens we rescued over Thanksgiving. She's all big now.
That wraps up our player Q&A today with Joe and Beard. Oh, and we do have we do have questions. Sorry about that, chat. You know, I was just so excited. We have questions from chat. So, Shai, do you want to bring up the first question?
The first one is from Valorious1, asking, after reading over the skills and abilities of the classes in Pantheon, how do you feel about how those will work together in groups or raids?
We'll start with you, Joe.
I can go a lot of directions with that one, but I'll answer it this way. I saw an ability where warriors can combine and team up with another warrior, and like a shield wall, but you have to use it in combination with another warrior. I thought that was a really cool idea. I don't know if I've really even seen that in another MMO. So I'm interested to see how that will work, not only in groups, but in raids. And I am assuming that it's a pretty powerful ability. You must have to use it in certain situations in raids. And yeah, so I'm interested to see what that looks like on the battlefield.
So double shields, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it sounds like the shield, you know, like in that one movie, 300. You know.
Oh, the phalanx.
Phalanx.
Or
Phalanx. Thank you.
Phalanx. Yeah.
Phalanx. Yeah,
There.
Maybe that's what it is.
Since my answer is kind of the same, I'm just going to go right now and just say, to quote one of my top Pantheon content creators, "Frickin' shield wall."
Shield wall, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the definitive proof that you can make two classes, two of the same class with the same ability work together.
Yeah,
you don't get much better than that.
Yeah, you don't get a whole lot of that in most games. That's probably why it's
right.
A lot of people are going to be interested in it, is just the simple fact that, wait, you mean I can take his ability and my ability and do one thing?
I don't think does that even exist in another game? I don't think it does.
They tried it in Guild Wars 2, I think it was.
They've had I think there's been some games that had something of the sort. But
some synergism.
I mean, they had chains, skill chains. I've seen skill chains.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just unfortunately never took off because it involves one player and another player actually getting together and doing the same thing, which sometimes can be difficult to do. A good example is Heroes of the Storm. I don't know if you guys ever played that, but Cho'Gall is two-headed.
Yes!
And two people have to play him. Each
I love that. Okay, another game that I'm just terrible at, but the only way I'll play it with a buddy of mine is if we play Cho'Gall. And we usually we don't do bad, but that's because he's Cho and I'm Gall, and I just got to worry about shooting people. But no, that is I love that guy.
So I'm kind of sidetracked here now, but Beard, did you give your answer?
No, I did not.
So please do. Do you need
to get in
question repeated? Or?
No. But not to get in specific on spells in general, just from the game itself. But what they're adding to the game, which a lot of games don't have now, and originally had it, but it's not so prominent, is the ability to CC targets and it necessary to CC targets, which makes the Enchanter in EverQuest so important. Is if you pull a large group of things, you're like, I'm not ready for this. Enchanter goes, my job is to keep that guy from doing anything up and until we can take him on. And to me, that adds a lot more depth to fights, because now it's just tank takes damage, DPS deals damage, healer heals damage. That is the trifecta. But you add in that fourth, like, one person just go, okay, I'm going to deal damage, but I'm also going to keep him busy. And then you've added a fourth dimension to that, which, coming from EverQuest, and they're now putting in Pantheon, is going to add a lot more depth that none of the MMOs have. Now, EverQuest had it, but a lot of us, well, not us here, but there's a lot of young people who are new to MMOs, and most don't even know what CC is. They're like, what does CC mean? Crowd control? I know what the two words mean, but what do you do with it? It seems like Pantheon is going, this is what you do with it, and it's actually viable. It is usable in a raid or a dungeon or whatever. So, skill set wise, it's just gonna take that 3-dimension trifecta that we already have, add that 4th dimension, and make it that much more enjoyable. Cool.
What's the second question, Shai?
And the second question, it's from It's Dairy. And they're just kind of curious on, in your opinion, is there a good, most efficient, cost-wise, and in-game efficient pledge to do so?
I've actually had to answer this one quite a lot. I'll field this one, I guess. If you're not into testing, stay away from alpha. Because while not as bad as pre-alpha, alpha testing, true alpha testing, can still be a very buggy, very frustrating experience if you're not used to it. If you want to kind of get a little jump start into figuring out how things work, I would personally recommend don't go any further than beta. Because a beta is going to be a not polished 100%, but more along the lines of getting most of the major bugs fixed. Or close to it. It's going to be more playable.
Yeah, it's their almost final product.
Right. So right there, you're pretty much limited to the Protector's Pledge and the Keeper's Pledge or the Watchers. That's the 150, 150. So personally, I usually recommend to people that it all depends at that point how much stuff you want in return for your money. Like, do you really want to have, for example, I think the Protector's Pledge has the Ring of the Fallen and rename vouchers, but I don't think the Keeper's Pledge does. If those aren't important to you, then just stick with the $100 pledge.
And another thing to point out is
you still get 2 copies, and you get 2 copies of the game.
Another thing to point out as well is, you know, VR isn't driving the bandwagon of how pre-alphas, alphas, betas are handled. It's not early access, and they're actually wanting to have the game tested fully, and you know they expect you to participate, you know, track bugs, help them, you know, find bugs, exploit the system, etc. So it's actually going back to the core roots of what, you know, alpha testing is about. You know, if you look at pre-alpha or alpha's access today, it's your early access, period. That's what it is, nothing more. You know, they ain't so demanding towards their expectations, whereas VR, from what we can kind of feel, is they expect a lot more from the community to help, you know, drive this game in the right direction.
Yeah, and I saw in chat it's Derry was asking about, like, you know, what the Founders Guild is. To be honest, we don't know. Nobody really knows. But if I had to take a wild guess, complete speculation here, I would say it's going to be a chat channel, maybe a building that Founders can enter that might have some vendors in it or something of that nature. I don't think it's going to be something that anyone can live without, you know. So I wouldn't put too much stock into that particular item, to be honest.
Do you, Joe, Beard, any of you want to chime in on that question, or?
Sure.
Go on then.
I think if you're on it definitely depends on the individual, of course. If they're on a tight budget, I would probably recommend, you know, probably the $100 tier. That offers a lot of bang for its buck. Plus, you get 2 copies. So really, you're just buying 2 copies of the game at that point. Plus, you get some bonuses. So I think that's a pretty good bet if you're on a tight budget. But if you want to go higher, it really depends on you. I mean, the higher you go in the tiers, the more it's really a donation to, well, I don't know if donation is the right word, but basically you're trying to grease the wheels a little bit and help them support what they're doing. And if you look at some of these items, like you're obviously not getting the same kind of value that you're getting at the $100 tier. I would say you just got to have to check it out and see for yourself what items pique your interest and kind of balance that against what the cost is. Personally, I was looking at the 250 tier for a long time, which looks pretty good. It depends on what you value. And so it's kind of hard to answer that question. Do you value beta access, alpha access? If not, maybe those simply just aren't worth paying for. Just take a look at the items. I don't know that there's a real definitive right answer to that question, but $100 is definitely a great.
And correct me if I'm wrong. You can still upgrade packages, correct?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm actually looking at it now, so yeah, you can.
Right. So you can go in at say the $100 Keeper's Pledge, and if down the road you feel like maybe you want to go a little higher, you can.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you can.
I tend to tell people to err on the side of caution, but that's just me.
Yeah,
I say, hey, go in at 100, and then if you like what you see, put down some more. If you love what they're doing, you look at pre-alpha 5, it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
If you love what you see,
if you go dollar for dollar, the $100 pledge, you get 2 copies of the game. So there's 2 Watchers pledges right there, and then you get a bunch of extra stuff. So to me, that seems like the no-brainer entry.
Yeah, that is
Unless you don't have someone to give. Unless you don't have someone to give that second copy to, some of us don't. Mm-hmm. Then,
or multi-box if you want to do that. You're a multi-boxer.
Multi-box.
So it's basically, a personal choice that you're going to have to make in the end. Ultimately, if the best thing to do is if you're still on the fence, keep following the game, and like everybody said, go with the $100. Or the even the $50 beta and base game if you want an upgrade later as they release more content, more information, do more streams, and then you can PA5 like Joe said, Project Faithal, everybody's excited to hear and see a fully fledged zone and city all sussed out with all the game mechanics, everything that's involved in the game, climate, acclimation, weather, you name it's going to be all in there for us to look at. So you can basically wait for that to happen and then make your choice. I think that would be a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, the important thing is to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and definitely none of those packages are pay-to-win type of things that are going to really advance you in the game anyway. So it definitely is supporting and helping the development team out.
Yeah. No, nobody will think less of you if you don't buy it until the game actually comes out. It's nice to look at when you have these things, but if they're building the game that they want with the community they want, you're going to get accepted whether you bought the Watchers Pledge, the Champions, or you bought the game when it came out. It's going to be about the community. These are just things that you can do to help out Pantheon and VR get where they want to be, and then get some extra additives for it. But if you don't want to do that and you can wait to pay for it when it comes out, you're going to be no less of a person who bought the game. You're still supporting it. You're still going to be invited into the community with open arms, a big, gigantic hug, and enjoy yourself.
Right. Exactly. To be honest, I know people who have done the Ascendance Pledge, the big whopper one. I know people who have done the Watchers Pledge. That's $50. And to be honest, I respect them both equally.
Exactly.
I even know people who are just waiting until release, and that's fine. I have nothing bad to say about any of those people.
Nope. So that brings us to the end, but just one more, actually 2 announcements before we actually close off now. So for those that don't follow us on Twitter, or aren't in the, I don't think we published this on Discord, but after our break that comes towards end of March, we're going to take a break to remodel everything. We'll be coming back with Tavern Talk. It's coming back to the main show here, the Voice of Terminus show. We'll be doing Tavern Talk every 3rd week of the month to cover the newsletter, the community, and everything. We're bringing that back. And
for those that are new, what was Tavern Talk?
Tavern Talk was basically your news outlet. We covered everything that's related to everything that's been going on in the community, the newsletter itself, what's happening around VR, what's happening around the game, you know, Reddit, all the social medias and everything. We basically brought all the vital information that you needed to one platform. So that's coming back, and for next week's show, we're actually going to go and, you know, be more open and accepting and open-hearted, and we're going to let you actually decide on Twitter.
I'm going to be open-hearted, yeah.
What we will do next week. So originally we had planned to do a show on spells, abilities, and alternate advancements, and look at, you know, ways to modernize and mash it all up, and alternate ways to do things, and what they could possibly do differently, etc. Or we actually bring in the expansion, what was the word I used? Cliffhanger discussion. So we're going to put up to you guys to vote on that. I'll put that on Twitter as well. You can vote until Wednesday, so we have a bit of time to prepare. But Joe and Beard, out of those two discussions, which would you like to see?
I'm going to go with the expansion cliffhanger, because you always talk about spells, you always talk about new abilities coming out, but you don't specifically talk about expansions, and God knows people love cliffhangers. They hate it at the end of like the season of shows, because it's like, oh, what happens next? But then again, it gets you prepped for the next season. Like, I got to see what happens. I hate waiting, but I want to see it. And if some expansions did that, I'd say that's a good thing to talk about.
Okay, that's good.
What about you, Joe?
Well, I've been covering the skills and abilities. I've been making a video series on all of the skills and abilities and spells for all the classes, so I think that one would be interesting for me.
Okay, so it's divided, so we'll have to see what Twitter does for us. Anyway, again, thank you, Joe, Beard, for coming on, joining us, and hanging out with us, and
it was fun.
Thanks to everyone again for us reaching this milestone. You know, we're all in this together. We did this, so a big thank you, and we'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Much appreciated. Thanks for the invite, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Take care, guys.
Be safe, everybody.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, y'all too.